Thank you for inviting me and thank you for hosting, Josie.
Yeah.
I'm Greg, yes. My name is Dr. Chris Lowe. I'm a professor of marine biology at Cal State Long Beach and I run the Shark Lab. I have been there since 1987 as a grad student. And then I went to Hawaii to get my PhD and then I came back and took over in 1998. So I've been running the Shark Lab for about 27 years. The Shark Lab is actually the oldest shark research lab in the country.
Oh, wow.
It was founded by Dr. Don Nelson in 1966, and he was what we call the first generation of true shark scientists. So after World War II, the Navy had a lot of sailors and aviators that didn't want to go to sea because they were afraid of sharks. So they were reaching out to the scientific community and trying to get them to come up with things like shark repellents. How do we protect people from sharks? And they found that there was no such thing as a shark virus. What they found, there were people who studied fish, and sharks should just be other fish. So they conned them by waving money in their face to study sharks to develop shark repellents. The problem was, at the time, was we knew nothing about how sharks perceived their environment. So you can imagine trying to come up with something to deter them. So it would be very effective if you didn't understand how they saw things, how they heard things, how they smelled things. So the first generation of shark scientists, which Dr. Nelson was, all focused on shark senses, how sharks sense their environment. So his big thing, his big claim to fame is studying shark theory. So and I'm going to tell you in the story I'm going to tell you tonight how you come full circle back to your house sharks theory. But when I took over, the main thing of the lab, the main focus was studying shark behavior.
Ellie, can you feed the puppy?
And how do we do that and what
Give her
tools and
water.
technologies can we use to better understand how
Give the
sharks
puppy water.
and Jaws, which was the movie that started it all, basically took advantage of the fact that we knew nothing about sharks and made it easy to create a monster for which we knew nothing about. So over the time period, we've learned a lot more about sharks. I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. So I'm going to start with saying,
I'm actually gonna, I just got a note that the Zoom, it's hard for them to hear, it's kind of muffled. So I'm gonna move the phone closer to Dr. Lowe.
Okay.
sure, yep.
Yeah. So.
All right, perfect. How about that? Those on Zoom, can you hear better?
We can hear you fine.
Yeah, we'll switch back.
Okay, good.
That's great, thanks.
So the start of this story is this. It's going to be a sharky summer. And the reason why we know that is we've been studying white sharks. And the thing that we've learned over the last 20 years of studying them is every time we have a strong El Nino, we get a lot more sharks in the state of California waters. Not just white sharks, but other species of sharks. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about what we might expect this summer based on the data. So the first thing that people ask me is, where are all these sharks coming from? So how many of you have been here your entire lives?
Recording in progress.
So in that time, have you ever heard there being this many white sharks? It's a different ocean. Really is a different ocean. And the reason is 50 years ago, white sharks were caught, killed, sold in fish markets. And chances are, prior to 1994, you ate fish tacos anywhere in Southern California, you ate white shark from yellow.
Wow, great.
Commercial fish, yes, great white sharks. They were caught by commercial fishers in gill nets, especially the babies, which are close to shore. They would get brought to market. It looks the same as mako and thresher,
Yeah.
and it makes great taco meat. So up until 1994, white sharks were harvested and landed. But in 1994, the state of California banned the landing of white sharks. It made it illegal to deliberately harvest. And the main reason for that was we recognized how vulnerable they were to overfishing and how important they were ecologically, despite the fact they would occasionally bite and kill people, which is really remarkable. The other really important thing that happened in 1994 was the state of California banned the use of gill nets in nearshore waters. Does anybody remember that? Okay, so this is something that's really interesting. All fisheries management in California is done by the Fish and Game Commission, right? So there's a group of appointees who make decisions on what bag limits will be and size limits and seasons and things like that. But because gill netters were setting their nets from nearshore, offshore, and they were targeting things like white sea bass and halibut and things like that, they were catching lots of marine mammals, and they were killing lots of sea lions, dolphins, birds, things like that. As a result, That was brought to voters as an initiative, a voting issue. And voters voted to ban the use of gilets. It's the only time I've heard of a fisheries management done outside the commission. Okay, so those two things, we argue, and that happened in 1994, the same year white sharks were protected, are the reason why we're seeing more white sharks. They've been protected for about 25 plus years. White shark female reached maturity around 16 years old. If you figure those babies that would have been killed are now full-grown moms and pups, and now we're being so when people ask me where are the sharks coming from, that's because of conservation success. So I go, yay. Guess what? Not everybody goes yay. So the thing that we really kind of talk about is why do people have excited about more sharks in our coastline? And a lot of it has to do with their reputations, right? So white sharks have been involved in bites. These are all the locations of shark bites along the coast. Southern California, of course, is not immune. Most people think of the Central California coast up off San Francisco and Monterey as being the predominant hotspot, but that is not true. You can see all throughout Southern California, the entire coast, pretty much. On average, there are only 3 bites per year. You compare that to Florida, where there's 40 bites per year. California is actually fairly low. 97% of the bites that occur on humans in California, we attribute to white sharks. That's the predominant species here, but if you go to places like Florida, it's black tips, spinner sharks, occasional bull sharks. You go to Hawaii, it's tiger sharks, occasionally white sharks. So keep in mind there are different species that might account for some of the different patterns. Now, most of the people that are bitten by white sharks are bitten by either large juveniles, those are typically sharks greater than 9 feet, but very rare to have babies, 4-footers, 5-footers biting people. We just don't see them. So as I mentioned, yay, conservation's working, but not everybody's excited. So one of the things we've noticed working with our lifeguards, by the way, we have the best lifeguards in the world. Anybody here, former lifeguards? Yeah, right. Ah, perfect. Best in the world. I would put them up against anybody. What they have noticed over the last 10 years is a 5-fold increase in sighting of white sharks on public beaches. So they've been keeping track and records of these sorts of things. And the other thing I have to remind people is we live along one of the most populated coastlines in the world. So between Santa Barbara and San Diego, there are 20 million people that live within 60 miles of the coastline. And we have a lovely climate, so we can enjoy ocean recreation year-round. So what that means is we literally have millions of people in the water year-round. And that makes us very different from many other places like Cape Cod. Only crazy people are in the water in the winter. I grew up there, so I know. So, but in addition, over the last 25 years, we've seen a big increase in changing recreational activities, right? People are using the ocean for a greater variety of activities than they've done before, right? So we have kite surfing and all sorts of new activities that people are doing, pushing them a little bit further from the coastline. Okay, in addition, 6 years ago, all you had to do is say the word white shark off a public beach, and lifeguards would immediately close the beach. It didn't matter how big it was. It could have been a 4-footer, you just had to say the word white shark. They would pull people out of the water. So before 5 years ago, there was a significant increase in not just sightings, but beach closures as a result of shark sightings. Okay, so I just told you there's more sharks, there's more people. You would expect there would be more bites. Believe it or not, that is not true. We've actually seen a decrease in per capita bite rate in California over the last 50 years. So the question a lot of people ask is, why is that? I'll talk a little bit towards the end about why I think that might be. But keep in mind, when a bite occurs, it does get a lot of news, right? We track patterns of that. When bites occur in the spring or the summer, it makes national and international news. And it lasts more than several days of news cycles, right? So that media, despite the fact that it is only maybe 3 bites per year, gets a lot of press, and it does result in economic impacts for our communities. We're in the process of documenting what that economic impact is, how big those bubbles are, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But our water safety officials, our lifeguards, are asking us what's going on, where all the sharks coming from, and is it safe for people to be in the water? So when we started this project almost 10 years ago, I said, we don't know. In fact, I wouldn't want to be in the water if I knew there was an 8-foot white shark off that beach. Now I dive with them pretty much a week. So yeah, don't worry, I'll explain why it's okay. So because of an increase of sharks off beaches and lifeguards and junior guards programs being worried about shark safety, in 2018, Patrick O'Donnell, who was our local assembly member, got us $3.75 million to start the California Shark Rescue Program at the Shark Lab. So we were already tagging and tracking white sharks, working with local lifeguards, working with commercial fishermen, and all that was funded by Monterey Bay Aquarium. So we started this program, and our main client are lifeguards. They're the ones on the front line. They're the ones that have to deal with the public day to day. They're the ones that have to deal with the fact that they may have a bunch of white sharks off their beach, and they needed certain information. So the information that we were going to provide them and have been providing them over this time is, where are the white sharks along the coast? Why are they in nearshore waters? What are they doing when they're in nearshore waters? How long are they going to stay? And of course, that's what lifeguards really want to know, because when they're camped out at their beach, dear God, when are they going to go? When are they near people? Do they pose a significant risk to people? How do people feel about that? Believe it or not, this is a really important question, because you could have sharks out there that are not bothering anybody, but if tourists come here, they may go, I'm not going there. That's nuts. And then, of course, what are the economic impacts of sharks? So these are all things that we want to answer as part of this program. And as soon as we get this information, the goal is to get it out. So we have formal education programs that have formal curriculum. We work directly with lifeguards. We provide training. We provide information. We have an annual workshop where we give them an update on everything we learn. And that goes all the way from identification to what do you do if you had a shark bite off your beach, all the way to treatment. So we'll talk a little bit about those things, but all our lifeguards, all our chiefs, captains come to this program. We're trying to get more tower guards involved. And the idea there is that information helps them better manage the beach. We also have a program for fishers. When these sharks are out off beaches, we have people fishing off beaches with heavy gear. They're catching these big sharks. And there are kids swimming. There are people swimming in those areas. So is that safe? They just want to do what they like to do. They want to fish. And the problem is it's putting somebody else at risk, and you're potentially catching protected species. That's a problem. So with hopefully better education, you can start to stem some of that. Of course, junior lifeguards, we have a miniaturized version for JGs. So we do the same thing. We go to all these different JG programs and we give them a shark program. And then, of course, we have a K through 12 program where we go into schools. So I have cards that go around. We work with teachers. I have a bunch of students trained to go in. A little bit more about that program as well. Then we have a public outreach program. And public outreach here is challenging, right? Because we have locals that have a certain degree of knowledge. But then we have people coming from all over the world that know nothing about the Pacific. They see palm trees and they think, oh, it's going to be beautiful and tropical. And then they walk in the water and it's crap. And of course, usually that's as they step on a stingray, right? So we need to provide this information that we're learning to this group that targets both locals and visitors. So we have an outreach program, and I'll talk about how that works as well. And the comic books you see passed around are part of that. Okay, so what do we know about white shark distribution, and how's that knowledge changed? So probably 30 years ago, everything we knew about where white sharks are distributed along our coast came from direct observation. Somebody would be out in a boat and see a white shark catch us. Somebody would be along the coastline and see a white shark swim by. A pilot would be flying their plane and see a white shark. So everything we knew about their distribution came from just direct observation. So what we knew was up in Monterey, off Farallones, off Tomales Point, is where a lot of that research first started. And we would see sharks starting to show up there around August, and they would be there till about February, and then they would leave. And they were all good sharks, subadults and adults. But in Southern California, there were records of really small white sharks hanging out or being caught off our public beaches. In fact, we have records going back to 1903 of a baby white shark being caught off Santa Monica Bay. So we know they've been using these habitats for a while. So the question is, why the differences in distribution? So these little sharks start showing up around April. And we start to see really big ones in Southern California. Those are the big females. But they don't hang out off our beaches. So we know they're giving birth somewhere along our coast. And the babies like to come into our beaches. But the females, the big females, some of these sharks are 6
Are they live birth?
They are live birth, yep. Have probably 12 to 14 month gestation. Yeah, so they're carrying pups, and they'll give birth to 2 to 15 babies at a time.
Whoa.
that are 4.5 feet long, probably 45 pounds.
Whoa, wait, yeah, five.
15. 15.
Count
That's right.
Oh my God.
They are born ready to go. So by the way, there's no parental care. Females give birth to their babies, they're completely on their own, and those sharks have to learn everything.
So they swim right to shallow water, the baby.
That's one of our thoughts. Yeah.
What about like we see the eggs, like the things that unravel, the people
Oh,
see the eggs?
different sharks. Different sharks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so some sharks are egg layers like chickens. Others have eggs that hatch inside the female, and then the females give birth to them. White sharks, actually, the females all sharks have internal fertilization. So males mate with females, they inseminate them with sperm, fertilizes the eggs. The eggs are in a little package, and then they have a yolk like a chicken, and then they use up the yolk. So a white shark, by the time it's used up, its yolk is only this big. So how do they get born this big? The females will continue to ovulate eggs into the uterus, and the embryos will eat the eggs. And they get these big, giant bellies filled with foam that they're then eating.
They're brothers and sisters.
They're like,
Well, they're not brothers and sisters yet. Many of the eggs are unfertilized. So then what happens is then she's done ovulating eggs, and then the final stage of her pregnancy, her entire uterine lining gets fuzzy like a shag carpet. And then she secretes this glycoprotein that the embryos drink. And it looks like buttermilk. So the embryos drink that until they're 4.5 feet long, and then they're born.
Wow.
and it's a live bird that she shoots out.
She shoots them right out. We think tail first. They come out tail first.
That's insane.
Nobody's ever seen it. So other species, that's usually how they come out.
So how big are the females that might have?
So female matures probably around anywhere between 12 and 14 feet, and they can get at least 20 feet. 20 footer is probably 20 footer is probably as wide as the table.
I do not want to see one.
In
That's massive.
Has there been any footage of a live bird?
No, not of a white shark. Not of a white shark. Other species, yeah, but not of white sharks. Sharks are really discreet about where they have sex and where they give birth.
Wait,
And I think that's because they're in very vulnerable states. People. So what they're happening Okay, so what we do tend to see along our coast is a lot of these juveniles in very close to the beach and in groups. So we call these nursery schools, right? So the question is why the sharks come in so close to shore, and it could be a really busy public beach as well. And we can see up to 50 sharks off the beach.
Up to how many?
So, pardon?
How many?
50, between 4 and 9 feet long.
Like in a over
Oh.
like.
In a minute. Yeah, along a 2-mile stretch of beach, we have counted 50 white sharks.
Wait, down here?
Yeah.
Through drones? How do you
Yes,
see that?
drones,
So
yeah.
the drones are kind of giving you this.
And you take pictures and then.
And that's the ones that we can see at the surface. We counted 50.
So we're talking 5 times that.
Could be, depends on the beach.
Is
So,
that at a certain time of the year? Sorry.
Yes.
Counting.
yes, summer. So the question is, why do these really young sharks come to our beach? Why do they come to the beach? So we have one hypothesis is safety. Believe it or not, when they're born, they're completely on their own. The safest place for them to be is shallow water. So being in shallow water means other big predators, which by the way, adult white sharks will eat their own. So they will cannibalize pups.
Wow, they're
Orca will eat them. Big mako sharks will eat them.
Wait,
So
why do they eat them?
food. They're great
Because they
meal.
can't get it anywhere else. Is
Yeah.
it like last resort stuff? or is it
No,
like-
they'll, yeah, they're a good meal. Yeah, they're a good meal.
anything you're gonna say.
So safety is probably the number one reason. The other reason is warmth. The water's actually warmer right along the shoreline than it is a couple hundred yards offshore. So that warmer water is, remember, and I forgot to mention, white sharks are also different from other sharks in that they are warm bodied.
Oh.
So as long as they're swimming, they can keep their body core warmer than the water. And that's like 8 to 10 degrees warmer. So the advantage of that means their muscles twitch faster. So they can swim faster. They also keep their eyes warm, so their eyes process better. They keep their brains warm. And they keep their organs warm, so they can digest meals faster. So, but they have to be swimming in order to do that. Now, if you were to touch a white shark, big white shark, it would feel cool to the touch. And the reason for that is that core heat is being retained inside the core of the body. So if you stuck a thermometer into them, you'd watch the mercury rise. So those embryos are incubating in a warm mom. She's probably giving birth to them in cooler water. And the other reason why they might come inshore is because it's warmer. So we think these are the things that draw them to the beach. Now, if they're going to be there for safety and warmth, you got to find something to eat, right? Okay, so the number one thing we know that they like to eat, stingrays. We have plenty of those, right? So we call them pancakes. They litter the bottom. They're easy to catch for a naive shark that doesn't know how to feed yet. So we think those are the primary food of the very young ones.
And quick, tell us a bit more about the sort of naive shark and they don't know how to eat yet and why they go for stingrays. What should they be doing if they?
Well, I think they would probably try to catch bigger things, but they don't know how.
Oh, I see. So the stingray's just not enough food.
Yeah.
So
No,
they
they're
just keep living and they'll get it.
Yeah, their teeth are very pointy, so they're not good at tearing hides yet. That will happen later in
Like
their
a sea
life.
lion.
Like a sea lion. That's after 10 years old, their teeth start to change morphology and change shape. Becomes better for marine mammals. But when they're young, things that have very small scales and soft skin are easy to tear.
Okay.
Now, the great thing about round stingrays is that we've done lots of 25 years work of on round stingrays at Seal Beach, Rivers End. Anybody know where that is?
Yeah.
Okay, we counted 16,000 rays there in a single day.
16,000?
16,000. You could not see sand. It was literally carpeted with boats.
And why is that? Why are they there?
Because the warm water coming out from the power plants and the sediments are really fine, so it mimics an estuary. And remember, we filled in most of our estuaries. So there's certain places that those round stingrays really like. So fine sediments, warm water, low surf. I'll talk more about stingrays later. Okay, so these aggregations.
I've always wanted to stingray them eating the sharks then.
Oh, they do. Oh, they absolutely do. We've found baby white sharks with spines all in their jaws, in their stomachs, in their livers. I kind of equate it to like eating, hot sauce for them. It's a little thin.
A little thin.
A little thin. So here you can see this is the area of the year. That's a 1-year-old shark. That's probably a 3-year-old shark. That's another 1-year-old shark over there. These are what it looks like in the aggregations. Remember I told you 50 sharks? They don't like to be right next to each other. They're actually kind of pissy that way. They will fight each other. They will bite each other. The smaller sharks will get out of the bigger sharks' way. We never see them behave that way around people. But they themselves will interact that way. So we don't really know why they form these aggregations. There appears to be some quasi-social component to it, but not social like we think, like a schooling fish.
Like they're not so like dolphins.
No, we don't see them moving together, things like that.
Is that a good way to know if it's a shark, if it's alone? That's what I've always thought.
No, because you can see that. So here's the.
Like a safety thing or why they're congregating?
I think that has something to do with it, right? So, or good food. So if you know there are other white sharks there, that must mean there's sufficient food, that the environment conditions are good, and because there are other sharks here, it might be a safe place. That I think is probably one of the best explanations. But here to give you an idea of density.
Are they really sensitive to noise, et cetera? Because it seems like they're really skittish to stay away from us.
Yes.
And we're making all kinds of noise.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll talk about that.
Okay.
If we did a whole study on that.
Common Jim.
So here you can see this image right here. This was Del Mar. This was Del Mar a couple years ago. How many sharks do you see there? That's less than the size of a football field. There's the
9.
wave.
There's 9.
7, 8, 9.
This is a good TV, by the way. You can see it very high resolution.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of density, right? That one of these just outside the wave break. So how do we answer that list of questions? So this is one of the things the Shark Lab specializes in. We use a lot of technology to help us answer that litany of questions. So one tool we use are called spot tags. Spot tags are basically a very powerful radio transmitter, and if we catch the shark, we can fix this to its dorsal fin. Every time that fin breaks the surface, this thing is sending a signal to satellites in orbit. When the satellites get it, it then sends me a text message saying, here's the latitude, longitude, time, date, and ID of that shark. But when the shark goes into water, that transmitter turns off. And the reason is radio waves cannot penetrate. It can only transmit when the fin and the antenna is in the water. The minute it goes underwater, it stops. So this is a great tool to tell us how far sharks may travel. they're not at the surface all the time. They don't have to come to the surface to breathe. So the other technology we use are called PAT tags, pop off archiving satellite tags. Now these get darted into the shark's back. It kind of hangs off like an earring. It's got a temperature, depth, and light sensor, a little computer, and it's logging temperature, light, and depth every 30 seconds. And we can set this for a pre-described date. It will pop off the shark. That will then float up to the surface and then upload all that data to the satellite and then download it all to me. So now what I get is a really accurate record of the temperature and the depth of the water that shark moved through. Remember I told you about light? So if we use the light level, we can use that to think about day length. And if we know how long the day length is and we know the time and the date, we can estimate longitude and latitude. And it's not terribly accurate. It's about 60 nautical miles on a good day, 600 nautical mile error on a bad day. So it's not really accurate in terms of where they're at. But it does give us a really accurate record of the temperature and depth we move through. The other type of technology we use is called acoustic telemetry. Believe it or not, this technology was developed in the Shark Lab back in 1972. We were the very first to ever tag and track a shark. That was all Dr. Nelson. When I was a grad student, we made our own transmitters. I am not an electrical engineer. It sucked. I would spend 2 weeks making a transmitter. We put it on a shark, we lose it in about 3 hours, and then have to go make it up. Now I just buy them. So these actually use sound waves, which travel really well through seawater. If we catch the shark and you flip the shark upside down and you restrain it that way, it goes to sleep. It's called tonic immobility. We can do surgery on them. We can make an incision. We can insert a transmitter into the body cavity, stitch it back up, and it's literally like throwing a switch. When you flip it over, it swims away.
Wow. That's
So using this tonic immobility, we can not only surgically implant a tag that will last 10 years, but we can take blood, muscle, and things like that for genetic analysis and health analysis. If the shark's too big for us to catch, then we can just dart an acoustic transmitter into their back. Now the transmitters that we put in the body cavity are in there for the duration. They're going to be in there for life. Batteries last about 10 years. The ones we put in the backs, anything you put in the outside of a shark, they're really good at getting rid of. The longest we're able to keep those in is about 5 years. After that, they'll fall out. So anything on the outside is eventually going to fall off. Now, these acoustic transmitters are constantly pulsing at rates. And when sharks get within a couple hundred yards of one of our underwater receivers, we have 100 of those, all along beaches from Morro Bay all the way down to San Diego, constantly listening for a tag shark. So when a shark swims by one of these receivers, it will log the time, the date, and the ID. Some of the transmitters have temperature and depth sensors on them, activity sensors, so they'll tell us how active the animal is at that time. Now, a team of divers has to go out and pick that thing up and download it. I have a bunch of divers. They're out diving today. It takes us a month to download all the receivers from Morro Bay to San Diego. Every month, we give the lifeguards an update of what tag sharks were detected off their beach per county. So we do that across all of Southern California. The last type of technology I'm going to talk about are called smart tags. Think of this like a Fitbit for a white shark. It's got a 3D accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer. It's measuring every motion the shark makes 30 times a second. It's got a depth sensor, a temperature sensor in it. It's got a video logger. So this thing is actually a video camera pointing down the shark's nose so we can see what the shark sees. It's got a transmitter on it so we can follow the shark from a boat. And after 24 hours, that's designed to pop off the shark and float to the surface. Now, remember I told you every month we give lifeguards an update about what tag sharks are off the beach. And we've been doing this for about 8 years now, and the lifeguards have been complaining about, can we get data faster? A month is a long time. Like 2 weeks ago, we had a 9-foot white shark off our beach. It'd be nice to know that, 2 weeks ago. So working with the manufacturer, we've developed these buoys. Now the buoy has a receiver that is now on a cable underneath the buoy, and it's 200 yards off the beach. Now when a tag shark gets within a couple hundred yards of the buoy, instead of a diver having to pick it up, it just sends lifeguards a text alert. So lifeguards get that text alert. Many of our lifeguards are subscribers to the service.
So that's like live information.
Live, real time, yeah. Yes, yeah. We have a buoy off Redondo. We have another one off Topanga. We're going to put one off Will Rogers. Yeah, our network's expanding.
How many sharks have you tagged?
So we've tagged a total of 390 white sharks. Right now we have 260 white sharks with active transmitters.
Do they stay in our area or do they travel 1,000 miles?
I'll show you. I'll show you. So this is what it looks like. It takes us to the Lake Webster website. And here are the buoys, right? So they show the buoys. Green means the detection. red means no detection, or the buoy's offline, white means no detections. So they can look and see, and they see the whole network. This is an old image. We have 17 buoys out right now, spread along the entire coast. These panels are like baseball cards for sharks, right? So this one is a bat ray. We also tag white shark food because we want lifeguards to know when white shark food is off their beach. WS means white shark. 22 is the year it was tagged. That's the 24th shark of that year. And then this tells us it's had 21 detections in the last 3 minutes. And it has a temperature and depth sensor on it. So it's at 16 degrees C and at 1.8 meters depth. So lifeguards get all this information and they can see how it's happening across the entire Southern California network. If they touch one of these cards, click on one of these cards, it takes them to give them the stats of who is that shark, what sex, how big was it when it was tagged. And then they can click on this and they will give them all the locations where that shark has been within the network. So lifeguards use this as a tool to understand the behavior of sharks. It's not an early warning system because we can't tag every shark, right? So just because you had a tag shark off your beach, there could be 50 out there that aren't tagged. So we use this as a tool to help them educate themselves as to how much activity is out there. So I'll give you an example. 6 years ago, we had a policy that we developed with all the lifeguards with the state that if there's an 8-foot white shark off your beach, you may want to pull people out of the water. The reason for that was we assumed that if a shark is the same size as a surfboard or bigger, that it might be more likely to approach somebody that size. What happened was we would have tagged white sharks off that beach that were being detected 50 to 100 times a day by the buoy. Nobody would see it. The lifeguards would throw their drones up. They wouldn't see it, but we knew the shark was there. So what do? Should they close the beach? Just because they're getting detections? Nobody's seen this. So as a result, it's changed their patterns of how they do beach closures. What they do is they post signs saying shark out of that. Switch over at your own risk. And that's the best they can do with that knowledge, right? So the whole idea is this changed how they feed information to the public and how they make decisions on beach closures. Okay, so coming back to how all this technology tells us how far these animals swim. Here is a baby white shark that was caught and tagged off Ventura in 2007. What you're going to see is an animation here. Somewhere in the middle of that blob, this shark had a pop-off satellite tag in it. Somewhere in the middle of that blob is its actual location. Up here is the date counter, and this is water temperature. Red is warm, blue is cold. So you can see here we are in July, August. We're going to get to October. You see this slug of cool water start to push down along the California current. And when that happens, these sharks start to make this migration south. And then prior to 2015, every single shark we tagged showed this behavior. And they ended up around Vizcaino Bay, which is this very big bay in Baja. So, and then the tags would pop off. And we found that the sharks would overwinter there. And because we put an acoustic tag in them, we would detect them the next summer back up in Southern California.
So that's the furthest they went.
Oh, no. Oh, we're not done.
Okay.
So we had this same year, had this interesting experiment. A similar size shark was caught, but this one was taken up to Monterey Bay Aquarium and kept in their big open ocean exhibit for 5 months. That shark gained 100 pounds in 5 months.
Because it couldn't move.
Oh, it was in the tank,
Yeah.
swimming around, and they were feeding it as much as it would eat.
500 pounds an hour?
It gained 100 pounds of body weight in 5 months. And it started eating it. And that was freaking them out. But the thing that really freaked out the aquarists was it started jumping in the tank. So they decided they better release it. And then they were trying to figure out how to get it out of the tank. So when they did that, remember when they caught them off Ventura, they would truck them up in a truck all the way up to Monterey. So they were worried about the driving them all the way back down because it had grown so much. So they elected to release it in Monterey in February. Okay, anybody know how cold the water is in February in Monterey? It's cold. Okay, so they didn't know whether the shark would actually survive, but they figured it was better than its chances of driving it down the freeway. Okay, there you go. Guess what? They can survive it. They don't like it. They really don't like cold water. In fact, they came all the way to Mazatlan to warm up. Okay, so every spring we get this phenomenon where warm water pushes up from the equator and comes up into the Gulf of California. And what we noticed was right before the tag popped off, sharks started hanging out around 150 feet where the water temperature was 67 degrees. Surface temperature was 82.
Oh.
So one of the things we found is that baby white sharks in particular do not like water temperatures below 60 degrees. And they definitely don't like water temperatures above 82 degrees. Now adults and big juveniles can tolerate colder water, colder than 60 degrees, but they can't tolerate water higher than 82 degrees. So remember, it's gonna be a sharky summer? Okay, so in 2015, the last strong El Nino we had, what happened was here off Baja, water temperatures got to 84, 85 degrees. So we think all the baby white sharks who were born in Baja that summer got all driven up into Southern California. And for the very first time, we had white sharks round Point Conception and go all the way up to Monterey. So in 2015, for the very first time, we had baby white sharks off Santa Cruz. That nursery has been there since.
Oh.
We looked at water temperature in Monterey Bay, and it's been getting progressively warmer over the last 35 years. So now we're seeing our nurseries move north, and a lot of that's due to ocean.
Question. I saw the counter with the days, but too late. How long did it take the shark to get from a month from Monterey to its final destination, or just to the bay?
To the point where to the tip of Baja.
Okay, to
Right.
the Baja.
So that was a month, yeah.
Do different species of sharks have different water preferences?
Oh,
Like
yes.
the ones in Florida that they must like the warm?
So that's what a lot of researchers are trying to figure out. What's everybody's sweet spot?
Okay.
And then what are their extremes? What can they tolerate? So what we've figured out is what those tolerable temperatures are, right? This is our acoustic receiver array. This shows where all our receivers are spread across California and also the Channel Islands. So we collaborate with Channel Islands National Sanctuary. They're our partners in this. They help us maintain that receiver array. So as I pointed out before, my team is constantly diving, downloading those receivers, and it's a huge amount of work. But that information gives lifeguards a lot more data to work with than what we get from the buoys alone. So one of the things we've learned about these nursery hotspots is that they come and go. So for example, our very first nursery hotspot that we identified was in 2010, was off Will Rogers Beach. And we had about a dozen sharks that we had tagged. We had receivers all along the coast, but the only place we detected aggregations was here. In 2012, that aggregation broke down, and then it reformed off Manhattan Beach. Many of you probably remember that, right?
Yep.
So right off Manhattan Beach, it was like, we tagged 20 white sharks in like 3 days off Manhattan Beach. So Manhattan was hot from 2013 to 2015, then it went cold. And then in 2015 to 2016, Belmont Shore, inside Long Beach Harbor, we had 25 juvenile white sharks there. And then that went cold in 2016, then Dana Point got hot. And then now we had Torrey Pines, that recently went cold as of last year, last summer. And right now our hottest spot is up off Carpinteria. Carpinteria. So that's the place where we've counted 50 sharks. We did that 6 years ago, and we just did it last week. About 50 sharks there.
They're still there right now.
They're still there right now. Yeah. So
What
what?
about the spring here? It seems.
So we had off Hermosa. We tagged a bunch off Hermosa, and that aggregation went cold. But right now, the second biggest hot spot is Will Rogers to Diamond. So that stretch from there is where we have probably, 30 plus white sharks. Most of them are small on the side. Up here, we see some 9, 10, even some 13 and 14 footers, which we don't normally see. So we know they grow about a foot a year for the first 6 years. So, they're using the aggregation sites, the beaches, the same way when they were babies, when they're about 6 years old.
But how fast can those like swim from Carpinteria down here?
So when they move between sites, they can do so fairly quickly. So for example, we had 3 baby white sharks that we tagged in Belmont Shore inside Long Beach Harbor. And my students actually tracked one all the way to Dana Point, and it did that in 24 hours.
Okay.
So that's 35 miles in 24 hours. It just made a beat. And then when I got to Dana Point, hung out there for a month. So when they know when they want to go somewhere, they can do it fairly quickly. Now, if we want to understand what they're doing in an aggregation site, we can use the same technology. So one of my grad students, Emily Spurgeon, did this project at Carpinteria. So here is Carpinteria Marsh, right? And that is Kevin Costner's house, and that's George Lucas's house, and that is Ellen DeGeneres' house. So this right here has been the hottest aggregation site that we've had for about 9 years now. So each one of these dots represents one of those acoustic receivers that's underwater. And the cool thing about that is we put them out in the grid. As a transmitter, a shark moves through this. If it's detected by 3 or more receivers at a time, we can trilaterate a position. We can
How
actually
deep are
get,
the receivers? Sorry to interrupt.
How
How
deep?
deep do you put them?
these
Are they
are
anchored
only,
to the floor or
yes,
they float around? They're anchored.
anchored to the seafloor.
Got it, okay.
This is about 35 feet out
Okay.
here. So most of these are less than 30 feet deep. So, but as the sharks are moving through, if they get detected by 3 or more, we can actually get a position. We know where they are. Many of the sharks had depth sensors on their transmitters, so we could tell where they were in the water column. So what Emily wanted to ask is, we know water temperature changes a lot here, like at a beach. How much are they following slugs of warm water? So you've all been at the beach and you know if you go in at one spot, the water's really warm. Move down the beach a couple hundred feet, and it's really cold, right?
Yeah, we get that a lot.
So you get these cells of water that move. In addition, during the summer, you get a strong thermocline at this beach. So the surface water will be 8 to 10 degrees warmer than the seafloor, only in 30 feet of water. So the question is where the sharks are spending their time and how does temperature influence that? So what Emily did is she had temperature sensors on the seafloor and on the sea surface. And then she used some really nice, sophisticated math to create 3D models of the temperature in this area every hour. And because we're tracking sharks through that space and we know their position in 3D space, she was able to correlate that with the temperature. So what you're seeing are differences in water temperature over the course of hours. So just tidal fluence is causing big changes in water temperature. So the question is, are sharks responding to that? So here's the animation. Here you can see seafloor water temperature. This is seafloor temperature. And each one of these dots is a shark. So this is 1 week's worth of data that we have. So this is about 1.5 miles from there to there.
So this is interesting. So these tadpole things are sharks, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of them together, more like a dolphin vibe than a lone shark situation.
So
Is there a
typically what's causing that is warmer. That's a reef there too.
Oh, wow.
And that's a reef there and that's warmer too. So
Okay.
But there's
sometimes,
more sharks that weren't tagged that are there too.
absolutely. Yeah, these are only the ones that have tags.
Okay, so it's water temperature, not social, emotional.
And probably food. So I'll get to the food part. But Emily's project was just this. So keep in mind, this is 1 week's worth of data. We have our array out for 8 months. We had 50 sharks tagged per year for 5 years for 8 months. So her total data set was 80 million lines of data per hour that she modeled to show this. Nobody's ever done this before. This was crazy.
This setting experiments out, and so you deploy all these. And I'm curious, so at some point when they start to migrate to a new hotspot, you take these out and then redeploy them?
Yeah,
They're expensive.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yep, you got that. And remember, my divers are diving around that every month to download those.
And our
So-
divers swimmers swimming there?
Yeah, yep, I'm gonna get to that too. So now we're gonna get to that. Okay, so the telemetry was a great tool, right? It tells us what sharks are doing when we can't see them, right? It's constantly tracking their movements. We can do it over days, weeks, months, years, right? But if we want to know what they're doing around people, that isn't a very good tool because I can't put transmitters on all of you as much as I would like to, and see how that tag shark responds to that person. I can't do that.
It's called Strava.
Yes. Exactly.
That's hilarious.
So these drones. Drones are a great tool. They were a great revelation for us because it was a cheap tool that enabled us to get video with latitude and longitude and altitude and all this data. And we could fly surveys across and count how often people are in the water, what are they doing in the water, and when are they in the water around sharks. Now, the technology is, wind dependent. It can't be too windy. The air creates a problem. So there are all sorts of things that make it restrictive, but nonetheless, this kind of just gives you some examples. So here's a baby white shark. These people don't even know that shark is there. They can't see it. We have this all the time. Here's another surfer who doesn't know that shark is there, swimming right by. Do you see the shark moving towards the person? No. We have hundreds of hours of this, hundreds, where the sharks just swim by, don't seem to care. Here we have swimmers, right? People playing in the water.
That could be us.
So the question we wanted to address was where are people distributed along the coast? Where are sharks distributed along the coast? At aggregation sites, where are sharks and how many people are there? And believe it or not, we now are to the point where we have more data on sharks than we do on people. So when I'm asking lifeguards about, how much data do we have on who's in the water, where are they in the water, what are they doing, what times of day, how many are out there, we don't have that information.
Do you have data, like looking at the people who have had bad encounters, let's call them, like Erica Fox?
Yeah.
Do you have data on what might have motivated the sharks to do that? And like in her case, she was wearing that shark deterrent thing. Like, is it possible that deterrent is actually like the thing that caused the shark to attack because it was so irritated by it that it wanted to get rid of it?
Yeah, so I'll talk more about bites at the end, but
Okay,
but
sorry.
no. It's the questions that people often have. It is a repellent, but it only works about 2.5 feet. So if you have a shark moving very fast, by the time it's 2.5 feet away, you can't try. So it's, and on their website, it's shark banned. On their website, it says does not work for white sharks. So, yes, look at the fine print.
That's a good question.
I'll talk more about that because I think it's a good question. So he did a study where one of my grad students flew surveys along 26 Southern California beaches every month for 3 years. So he had a set survey pattern that he would fly. He flew over 700 surveys, 300 survey days, 700 hours of footage they had to process across 145 kilometers of coast. So we had partners helping us collect video footage that he would then go through and process. So this is an example of what one of those surveys look like. These are the kinds of data that we get from a regular DJI drone. Here we have swimmers, we have waders, we have surfers. So what he was doing is he was measuring where the surfers were to the wave break and where they were to the shoreline for every single person in the water. So as you do that survey, he would measure all those distances. And then anytime he saw a shark in that same survey, he would measure that shark's distance from the shoreline to wave break and from the nearest person. So the goal was to see how often, what were people doing, how were they distributed along beaches, and then where were they in proximity to sharks. So obviously that was a huge amount of work. So we developed some machine learning tools. So I had an army of undergrads going through and classifying images. Like that's a surfer sitting on a board. That's a surfer flipped over on a board. And to train this took thousands of images. So my undergrads classified, I think, 8,000 images so that we could get 85% accuracy at I think it's 70 meters. So, but now we can pump a video through, 30-minute video through this and calculate and measure everything in like 30 seconds. So this is Padero Beach, this is Carpinteria. All the triangles are where he saw sharks. The blue are where he saw people, and the red is the extent of where he saw sharks. So what do you notice? Yeah. So by the way, there's 2 surf camps right here, and there's 1 beach access point right there.
Yeah.
So a majority of the human activity is where a majority of shark is, and it still is today. My team was out the other day, and all the little ones that they saw were literally 50 feet off the beach, just outside the wave break, right outside where the surf camps are. Okay, so we compare that to Del Mar at the same time. So again, here are all our shark detections right here. The reason why the sharks are all clustered here is because there's a reef break here. This is where the surfers are. Really good reef break. But you'll notice humans are distributed all along here. And the reason for that is there's beach access on here. So it spreads out human activity. So one of the things Patrick found from this study, probably I thought the most interesting, was people aren't willing to walk more than 200 yards from a parking lot to go for any activity. Sharks actually will cluster in areas where there are fewer people, but will be around where most of those people are, even though they're fewer. And you get to this place, there are a lot of people. I mean, I don't show you the human numbers and counts, but it's like 15 times higher than this here. So whether there's a lot of people in the water or very few people in the water, the sharks don't care. They don't seem to care. So that was one of the cool things that he found. At these 2 aggregation sites, 97% of the days that he did surveys, he saw a white shark within 60 feet of a person. 97% of the days. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, people are out for an evening swim or an evening surf, and I guarantee you a white shark is swimming right underneath someone, and they don't know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The pumping together versus Del Mar, first.
I think this has to do with water temperature.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets warmer right in this spot right here. That was one of the things Emily's project found. So if we look at their distribution from the shoreline, so this makes sense. Waders, this is the wave break. This would be to the shoreline. So waders are of course in the wash, right? They're bouncing up and down in the stingray zone. We got bodyboarders, they're kind of from the wave break into the wash. Swimmers are outside the wave break, right? So we see this is their main distribution. Surfers in the lineup, outside the wave break, and then also in the surf. Stand-up paddlers largely outside, all just outside the wave break, and this is the distribution of sharks. So what water users are likely sharing the water the most? Swimmers, surfers, stand-up paddlers, right? So this is just based on behavior, and again, during the 3 years he did that study, there was 0 bites at any aggregation site. So look at the numbers. Those are pretty big numbers. A lot of people in the water, a lot of sharks, and no bites.
And is this a mix of juveniles and adults or
No,
just the
all
juveniles?
All juveniles, ranging from 4 to 9 feet.
Did the video analysis they have, were they looking for adult sized ones? I mean, are they
Oh,
just,
yeah.
are just not even,
Oh, they're hard to miss.
that's what I was gonna say.
When you see one with the drone, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah,
But during his surveys, I think he struck 2.
that's.
2 that would be adults out of 700 flights.
So few.
So mainly juveniles. Yeah.
The numbers on the side is that the count of sharks? Is that?
Yeah. So this is count of sharks observed,
Okay, yeah.
right? Total over the 3 years, and those are all sample sizes from all the water users. So keep in mind. Remember, I told you 8 years ago I would be uncomfortable about being in the water if I knew there's an 8-foot white shark out there. Now I don't care.
It's interesting because I would have thought in my uneducated, thought process, that they would like humans to smell, we're warm, we're blood, we're kind of like a sea lion to them.
Mhm.
But it doesn't seem that that's the case.
No.
So do they look for food through sense of smell, or is it what attracts them to food?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How did they know we're not?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Sorry. They're all great
We're not
questions.
fishy.
Okay, so this is kind of getting to that. So here are 2 surfers, 3 surfers, stand-up paddler. That's probably, that's a stand-up paddler. So that's probably an 8-foot, 9-foot board. That's probably about an 8-foot shark, 8.5-foot shark, right? Notice that shark just changed its orientation.
Yeah.
And now it's moving towards the paddle, right? Okay, so remember, hundreds of hours of footage, what we look at is how often does this happen? So notice this shark is moving towards this. Now the paddler sees the shark.
Paddler says, oh crap.
Yeah, they see it. And now the shark gets within about 5 feet and then turns away. It's not accelerating. It's not moving really quickly. It's not darting in and darting away. It's not circling. It's simply what we call oriented to it. So one of my grad students was looking at this and asked, well, how did that shark know that object was over there? So I can tell you right now that visibility, horizontal visibility, there's no way the shark could see that person. So we hypothesized that it's actually sound or vibration that they're detecting. So this grad student did a really fun study. What she did was we got this special hydrophone that measures sound frequency and vibration. And we put that in the water and we put 2 buoys out, and then we made undergrads who would swim between buoys. My grad students
Always the undergrad.
There you go, freshmen. Shark bait.
all get to be involved in research, right? Not so long. So what we did is we had them swim between 2 buoys and hydrophones in the middle, and we recorded the sounds that they made while they swam at 2 speeds. So we gave them different stroke rates to swim at. And then we recorded those sounds and the vibrations that are created. So this hydrophone is kind of special because what it does is it does 2 things. It measures sound pressure and what's called particle motion. So I'm going to do a little experiment to show you the difference between what we call near field and far field sound. Now sharks have inner ears. They can hear sound frequencies, and our hearing overlaps with some of theirs, but they detect frequencies lower than ours. Now, what we're hear quite often is what's called far field sound, right? It's reverberation of that sound that travels through air. But sharks have what's called a lateral line, these special cells along the side of their body, on both sides of their body, that will detect vibrations, water displacement. So to give you an example of how near field versus far field sound works, I want you all to close your eyes.
No.
Oh, okay. So how many of you heard that? Okay, good. That's far field sound. How many of you felt?
Very near.
Okay, so you.
A little bit,
you felt air, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So what's happening is that air is being compressed, and she was close enough because air is very compressed.
What are you doing?
So it doesn't travel very far. But in water, water is not very compressed. So that vibration can travel 50, 60, 100 feet, right? So we know sharks can orient, can get a direction of the vibration is coming from. But they may not have the ability to orient to the direction of a sound, just based on the nature of their hearing. So what Whitney wanted to do is measure, okay, the sounds that people make when they're swimming between buoys. Then we put those same students on a surfboard. We had them paddle a surfboard. Then we put them in a kayak and had them paddle a kayak.
They know that they were bait.
Oh, yeah. And we did it in a shark-free zone. We told them it was a shark-free zone.
We told them. Although we learned that nothing's a shark.
They were freshmen, they didn't know.
So the question was, are the sounds different? So when we looked at this, we looked at the various sound frequencies. Are they different? So here's the sound frequency of a kayaker. This is a spectrogram that shows the frequency of sound versus the time. And the brighter it is, the louder or stronger it is, right? This is the sound that a swimmer makes. Those are the strokes right there. And then here is a surfer, and those are the strokes. And then here's nothing. Like if we just have background noise, there's nobody doing anything. So nothing, and those are little snapping shit, noisy little buzzers. But what you can see is that when we're doing water activities, we create a bit of noise, right? So what Whitney found was the sounds are statistically different within the shark's hearing range. So we assume that they can tell the difference between a swimmer, a surfer paddler, and a kayaker because the sound characteristics are different. So then the next question is, if we give them a hearing test, how do they respond? So then we took a playlist of all these different sounds that they recorded. And then we got a special speaker and we played it back to the sharks. Now, the problem is when you play it back to them, if you play it back at the same frequency, we can only do this at aggregation sites. And remember, at aggregation sites, there are already people there who are already doing all these activities. So if we play it at normal volume, we expected no response. And that's exactly what we saw. There's noise all around it. And this matched that noise all around it. But if you crank up the volume, suddenly they respond. Now, I relate this to me living, I don't know, half a mile from the 405. When we have normal onshore breeze, I don't even know it's there. Friends come and visit me from wherever, and they're like, what is that god awful noise? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Freeway. Then when the Santa Ana's blow, I'm like, holy crap, 405 is like right in my backyard. So we believe that this response of turning up the volume should then elicit a response, and it did. What we found really interesting was they responded to the sounds of swimmers more frequently than that of the other water users. However, we think that had to do with the fact that, and we found high variability amongst swimmers, and this is something that we were talking about earlier. Swimmers swim in two different ways. There are kickers and there are non-kickers.
Oh, yeah.
So who here are non-kickers?
Oh, no.
Who here are kickers? Okay, when Whitney looked at the spectrograms of kickers versus non-kickers, you get a two-phase sort of signal. So what happens is the kickers are doing this, and then the arm strokes are out of phase with that. So what happens is if you play those different sounds back, you get different responses. So we think, and I don't know which one is better, but what I can tell you is it's also episodic. So constant sound is less appealing than intermittent sound. Intermittent sound tends to get their attention more. And I think the reason for that is what it does is it creates a blank, there's ambient noise, and then suddenly it starts again. So that's kind of what we noticed from this experiment. Now, the bottom line of this whole thing is we think that when a shark experiences a person for the first time, we don't smell like their normal food, right? We don't smell like stingray. We don't smell like fish. We don't smell like marine mammals. We don't sound like those objects, and we don't look like those objects. So as babies or even as juveniles, I don't think they perceive this as food. And if they did, you would not be swimming. I trust me.
They can smell?
Oh, absolutely. They have really good senses of smell. So if they can tell the difference between us, different water users, and we don't sound, smell, or taste like any of those other objects. Then we're non-food. Okay, now, the other thing that we noticed from all our video is that most people never know the sharks are there. Were they accepted to stand-up paddlers? Most people are just doing whatever. When we look at sharks' behavior around those people, they don't change their position, they don't change their orientation, they don't tend to avoid, they don't tend to move towards, they just don't change their path, and they don't change their speed. And what that tells me is as long as we're not chasing, they're ignoring us. So the conclusion from Whitney's study is we're flotsam at the beach, just floating objects.
You said they respond more to the swimmers. What did
They
you
do.
mean by that? That
We
they
would-
turn towards us?
Correct. So if a shark is just ambling along and a swimmer's over here, and a surfer may be over here, equal distance apart, there's a higher probability that it would turn towards a swimmer if it was going to do that at all, right? And then we've actually had, and I don't want to tell you this, but I certainly didn't show you the video, we've had like a 7 or 8 foot white shark swim 3 feet behind the swimmer who had no idea the shark was there. Right there. Got 3 feet away and just turned away and just swam.
We've got to see that video.
No.
No, we don't.
Were they a kicker or a non-kicker?
Is there something in that sort of the apex predator, like the position of humans on the top of the water versus below? Like, are divers more at risk, for example, down there than say swimmers on the top?
No, so when we get to adults, adult white sharks that are feeding on marine mammals, most of the predation events we think occur at the surface. Now, there's an artifact there, and that's the only time we see them.
Yeah.
In places like Guadalupe, we actually think that the elephant seals, when they come to the island, don't come to the island on the surface. What they do is they're following along the seafloor and come up this way. And I've been out at Guadalupe where all of a sudden I've just seen a bunch of blubber and a bunch of blood come up to the surface. So I think what the sharks have done is figured out that the elephant seals are hugging the bottom rather than coming into the surface, and it's harder to ambush. So, this is why in places like Central California, in the winter, when the adults are there, swimming around a rookery is probably not a good idea.
Was there,
A rookery is where seals haul out, so that's a haul out. So seals and sea lions, they may haul out to molt, or to give birth, or to rest. Yeah. We don't have very many here because all our marine mammals are around the offshore islands. So Catalina, the Channel Islands, San Nicolas, there are hundreds of thousands of them out there. This is why we don't have adult white sharks off our beaches.
You said we don't have many here. Where are the ones that are here?
Where are they? They just pass through. So we detect them. We have a bunch of adults tagged, and we'll detect them. They just pass through. They don't stop. They just keep going.
Are they further out?
No, sometimes they are along the beach. Usually a little bit further out. But we get far more detections around the Channel Islands. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of detections.
is there
I think
something
that
to,
transition works with how a juvenile changes its diet,
Yeah.
when it changes its diet to start testing and predating on things like sea lions, harbor seals. When do you think that started occurring?
10 feet. About 10 feet is when we see their tooth morphology start to change. And then we actually see them trying to catch marine mammals. Remember, what makes today very different is our marine mammal populations have recovered better than anybody thought were possible. Remember, many of these species were on the verge of extinction by the early 1900s. So estimates for California sea lion are anywhere between 270 and 470,000 animals. So when you figure white sharks, and by the way, northern elephant seal is here for the adult white sharks. They are the top. They are the fave, right? They have the highest fat level, that sort of thing. That is the Five Guy burger of white shark. Or if you're in Southern California, that's an In-N-Out double, right? Down the side. California sea lion is Burger King. So they'll eat them if they have to, but they're not preferred. And that's why most of the adult activity we see focused around elephant seal work reefs. So along the Central California coast, and this is why people are like, oh, there's lots of sea lions in Monterey Bay. But you don't have to go very far north or south, and then there's lots of elephant seals. So, there's a preference there, but there may be a certain degree of experience needed. Sea lions are far more maneuverable than elephant seals, so they're probably harder to catch, unless they're sick. So remember, when we have big domoic acid issues, the animals are sick, they're easy targets for white sharks.
Does that affect them?
because I remember the sea lion situation a few years back.
So we've asked this question many times, and we've always wondered, does that affect sharks? There are researchers that actually fed sharks domoic acid at 3 times the concentration that would kill a marine mammal, and they showed no physiological effect.
I mean,
They are hardened.
They are harder. They are harder.
is there, one more question? Is there something to like the underwater topology, like?
Yeah.
The Santa Monica Bay, I mean, it's also shallow the
Yeah.
whole way along.
Yeah.
And I always attributed that to being, the sharks like to attack from below.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's why it's so safe.
Yeah, and that very well could be. But when you go to places like South Africa, they have lots of bays like that where they get big sharks in those kinds of conditions.
Okay.
So it depends on the behavior of the prey. I think it depends on the abundance of the prey. And in Southern California, unlike Cape Cod, the reason, if there were no people in Southern California, our beaches would be littered with seals and sea lions, like completely covered. Because we're on the beaches all the time, we've chased all the seals out. The best place for them to be is around offshore islands. There's no people. Cape Cod, where I grew up, and we saw gray seal growing up, by the way, they have the beach 8 months out of the year because nobody's out on the beach during the winter. And then when beach season comes, seals are not giving up their space. So now you have people trying to swim and recreate around a rookery of seals. That's probably not a good idea. Different behaviors, different sizes of sharks, different situation.
What about La Jolla? There's a ton of seals.
Oh, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. That would be like finding a vending machine in the middle of the desert. A white shark wouldn't even waste its time.
But there's so many things.
That's nothing. You go to San Miguel Island, in 2 weeks, there'll be 200,000 sea lions.
Wow.
There'll be probably 8,000 elephant seals. There'll be Guadalupe fur seals there. It will be like Costco.
It'll be a smorgasbord.
So why waste your time at Seal Beach in Roy?
Where is this in the San Miguel?
San Miguel Island?
Okay, what
Northern
are
Channel
they?
Islands, the Northern Channel Islands. So Santa Cruz, Anacapa, Santa Rosa, all those islands are largely uninhabited. And that's where all the seals and sea lions hang out.
Papa.
That's what you're talking about. Okay, so one, I'll finish it up. We know the sharks are spending weeks and months at a site. We know they have to be eating. So the question is, what are they eating and how do we feed them? So this video right here, those are all round seeds. Those are all pancakes, right? So here's that little white shark going through. Oh, you didn't see? Tons. It's all you can eat pancake breakfast. So, and that, believe it or not, I always tell people, look, if you don't like stingrays because you got nailed a few times, you want white sharks off your beach because they will keep you safe. So to answer that question, I had a team of grad students trying to figure out what these white sharks eat when they're at these aggregation sites, because maybe that's the reason why an aggregation site breaks down. They eat out all the good things, right? So Jamila, what she would do is go out and she would take muscle biopsies from sharks. So we could take a little pulse sphere, we could take a little muscle biopsy from that shark. And then she could look at the chemical signatures within the muscle, and then she could compare that to prey that we catch in the same places the sharks eat. So we could take little muscles from that. And then we could compare the signatures and ask, what do you eat? So Elizabeth was looking at how much food is at these sites. So we do beach scenes. This is called a grub. It's a beta remote video system that we drop on the seafloor. That's a video camera, and there's a little thing of squid there. And then she would record things coming up to eat the little bits of squid, and we could count how many of those things are there. So we could use that to figure out how much food is there that white sharks can eat. And then Zach actually would just take water samples. But then we could also compare these data with what lifeguards saw in terms of stingray injuries, how many people they treated for stingray injuries. Okay, so Zach's project was taking water, and if you take a liter of... I also teamed up with a psychologist, and we've been trying to understand how people, what causes people to fear, right? So one of the things we found is that picture right there is actually very reminiscent of Shark Week. So people look at that and think the mouth's open, it's going to bite something, right? So just a picture of a live white shark, even though that's a beautiful photograph, that is enough to scare people right there, right? So we challenge the students. You have to anatomically draw the sharks or the animals so they're correct and people can identify them to the species. And this student, I thought, did something really clever. So this is for Central California where there are adults, where the adults come to an elephant seal rookery. And what it's doing is it's teaching people about the seasonality of this. And the way she did it, I thought was really clever. The sharks are sending each other postcards of where they've been throughout the year. So now what we do is we've actually done surveys where we've asked people about the sign. Did you see the sign? They go, oh yeah. And then we ask them, what did you learn from the sign? And then they tell us, oh, I learned from the pictures. I was looking at the pictures. The art was really nice. But they didn't read any of the words. Then the next time they went and they actually read the text. So they actually looked at the sign twice. How many times do you think somebody needs to look at that sign?
One.
So the key here is, are there ways that we can inform and educate people without scaring them? And that was the whole approach. So this student got an A for that project. So we have a big K through 12 program, the cards that I passed out. If you have kids in schools, we work with teachers. I have students across all disciplines going in. We have different grade levels of curriculum that we deliver. It's very hands-on, and it's called Operation STEM Bait Sharks and Robots. And I say, if you can't get kids interested in science, technology, engineering, math, using sharks and robots, we suck at what we do. Lifeguard education program. This is a really important one. We teach them how to identify different types of marine life. They're the best lifeguards in the world, but they may not be marine biologists. We teach them how to identify behavior. What does aggressive behavior look like? And of course, then we give them the signage that they can use. And they're our ambassadors. They're the ones on the beach. They're interacting with the public. So they need this information as well. We have a comic book series. So you have our comic books. This one is about beach safety, to teach kids about beach safety. And it was so popular that we did one on marine pollution and then one on how to be a shark scientist. So these are available on our website. You can read them for free. They're in English and in Spanish. We've given out 80,000 of the paper copies. Kids love the paper. Dear God, my room is full of boxes. But it's been very popular. This is a project I do with one of our psychologists at Cal State Long Beach, and we've been doing a study looking at people's perceptions. We've surveyed over 800 people so far. And one of the things that we found is that if people think sharks are cognitive, like decision-making animals, they don't view them as mindless feeding machines, that they are less afraid. In addition, if people have had a positive experience with a shark, in other words, you're at the beach and a shark swam by you and it didn't bite you, you are 300 times more likely to be willing to get in the water with a shark. 300 times more likely. So even an experience at a public aquarium, petting a shark, is enough to start to change that. So this becomes really important in terms of how do we message our research out to the public. Okay, a few quick tips on how to be safe. To be safe in a wild place. We always have to remind people the ocean is a wild place, right? It's not Disneyland. Your safety is not guaranteed. You all know that as ocean swimmers. The safest thing to do is swim at guarded beaches, right? They're there to help you. They can advise you on current conditions. They can help you if something goes wrong. Learn first aid. This is really important because when we've investigated all the bites that have occurred in Southern California, we've had people who probably would have died anywhere else, but lived because there was somebody in the water near them who knew basics of first aid. How to apply a tourniquet, how to stop bleeding, all those things make a huge difference. Stay in a group. Statistically, your probability of being bitten is significantly lower if you're in a group. But if you're off by yourself, that probability goes up a little bit. Remember, it's already low. What we're talking about is further lowering it. So if you swim in a group, try to stay together, right?
How close?
Okay, every swim club I've ever had always asks how close. Some of them are like shoulder to shoulder. I'm like, that's too close, right? So I would say, if you're 5 or 6 feet apart, you're fine.
Like 200 or 300 yards?
200 or 300 yards. You're going to have to swim either faster or slower. Where are you, at the back or the front?
I'll do slower.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So, but statistically, that's just what we see, right? And it matches the behavior of predators, right? They try to isolate, find things isolated. It just increases your safety. And by the way, if something happens, you have people there who can help you. So I investigated the incident that happened with Erica Fox in Monterey, and if you didn't know, she swam in a group, the kelp crawlers. She was always the fastest. She had rounded the point. She was by herself. That was when it happened. And the rest of the group hadn't made it around the point yet. So it's just, not to freak anybody out, but it is statistically safer if you stay in a group.
Everybody.
Don't be first.
Don't be last.
Don't be last.
So just staying in a group does just lower your probability. That's all.
But I mean, we're talking
such a low chance anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It doesn't seem like it's even.
Swim fast. Just keep swimming fast.
Well, don't you think though that Monterey has more
Oh,
adults?
correct.
I mean, the
Yeah.
ecosystem there is.
Absolutely.
We basically swim
Yep.
in a desert
Yep.
here.
Not a desert,
Okay.
but yes, I would agree with that.
I mean,
There's
there's-
just more people, right?
And more stuff in the water.
Right.
There's more
Exactly.
abundance
Yeah.
of lice.
Yeah, exactly. There's more natural food,
Yeah.
right?
For the big sharks.
For the big sharks,
Why
yes.
do you think
sharks.
it didn't go for her? Like, just because she was alone, or like, why? They don't
That-
seem to want to go for humans. Why did
No,
that happen?
well, we don't know. And remember, Steve Brummer got hit 3 years before that at the exact same spot. And then a bodyboarder, or not a bodyboarder, a paddler got hit at that exact same spot the year before she got hit. So there were 4 incidents at that exact same location, like 100 yards
Is it
apart.
really deep water?
Yes,
Like
it
an
comes up
outfall?
really quickly, and there's a shelf.
Yeah.
So, they were, when I went, yeah,
It's a
It's a
really
reef.
popular dive
Yeah.
spot, it's for fishermen, because it's, when you have point structures like that, they aggregate fish
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
right? And so now you're off by yourself, and adult white sharks hunt differently than these
Yeah.
juveniles.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
If there's a swimmer just sitting up there, it's easy to misidentify.
yeah. So we don't know why. We really don't know why. What I can tell you is, in some cases, well, we always put bites into 2 categories. There is predation related, right? And those are usually rushes. The person gets hit really hard or gets dragged in the water, gets launched. And then there are what we call investigative bites, like surfers
Like
are,
an arm and stuff like that.
they're just laying on the board and the shark clamps down on them. They're not hit, they're not knocked over, it literally just clamps onto them and then releases. And then what we have are what we call defensive instances, where a shark is acting defensively. The problem is we never have enough information to know what drove one incident or the other. We did have a situation though, a swimmer, ocean swimmer off Del Mar at that aggregation site that got bit. He was swimming, he was right in front of the headquarters. It was a horrible red tide. Like they were swimming and they couldn't see their hands. It was so bad.
Red tide or
Bad red tide. So he was swimming, his buddy was maybe 10 or 15 feet away from him on his flank. And as he was swimming, he felt something bump him in the chest. Just a little bump. So as soon as that happened, he went vertical. And as soon as he went vertical, he got hit across the chest. Right? So the shark got him from rib to rib. And luckily he hit his ribs. So it did just hit him in the left. And of course he's bleeding, his buddy helped him and they took him to the beach. I think what happened, and I didn't talk about this because I didn't have time, we think these sharks sleep when they're at the beach. They turn off half their brain, they'll swim in a circle, they'll swim in a lazy, very straight line. And I've had my students trying to tag sharks in the water actually not be able to see them and bump into them and startle them, and they do the same thing. As soon as you startle them, they'll try to come behind you. So I think what happened was, I think he bumped into the shark, startled it, it came back around, hit him, and then took off. So, but how many times does that happen?
He
And
swam into the shark then.
I seriously think that's what happened. I think he bumped into it.
All right, Jim, I'm gonna start opening that.
Is there any study of whether or not they, like what you wear, like if you're in full neoprene versus a swimsuit versus nude?
Mhm.
Like,
Why is she pointing at you?
She's famous for
would
this.
they mistake the full neoprene for a seal, or are you less likely
Yeah.
to get hurt because you're protected
Right.
by neoprene? Like, what's
Yeah.
the?
So the question is whether neoprene or color matters. The data that we have on white shark vision is they're colorblind. So color doesn't matter. They do have good contrast vision, but if you've ever been swimming without goggles, you know how you can see things underwater but they're not clear? That's what we think white shark visual acuity is like. Based on their rods and cones in their eye, that's what we think it's like. So they can discern objects and things like that, but it's not super crisp, right? So, a silhouetted object is a silhouetted object. They make the wetsuits that have the crazy patterns and the surfboards that have the crazy patterns, and they argue that it breaks it up. But what matters there is the amount of reflected light. So if you're swimming in deep water and you look up and there's very little reflected light, you won't even see those banding patterns. They're gone, right? Because it's all silhouette at that point. But if you have a lot of light reflecting off the sand and coming back up, you can see that, and it does make it kind of disappear. My colleagues in Australia are working on wetsuits and surfboards that have light patterns on the bellies, and they have a light sensor on the back. And what they do is they have little LED lights that match the downwelling light to try to cloak your outline, which is really cool. I can't wait to see the data from you. So, and as you're swimming, if the light gets darker, the lights get darker. And if it gets brighter, the lights get brighter. And the whole purpose is to break up your outline. So they have a lot of tests to do. I can't wait to see what undergraduate gets to do that test. But that technology is probably going to be the most promising. All the other stuff out there hasn't really been demonstrated to be effective. And there's no...
Shark eye stickers that you put on the boards that have big eyes.
No, but sharks can tell where your eyes are. Like if you see a shark, you always watch the shark, you follow the shark, you track the shark. Let the shark know you see it. If you're on a surfboard, turn your board towards the shark. Shark just sees a point that looks like a head, and it's going to think it's orienting towards it. So we've seen this pattern a lot of times. Even surfers don't know the sharks are there. If they suddenly start turning their board, not knowing the sharks are there, the shark will see that and they'll start moving away. So we know they can orient to that sort of thing. I've been in the water, not here, but in the water with white sharks in other places. And if you look at them and you follow them and track them, they won't get closer. And those are big ones.
I have a question about the behavior. You said surfers wouldn't be as scared if they saw it.
Yeah.
So I've seen one come right up alongside the board, swimming so slow,
Yeah.
so not scary at all.
Yeah.
But then I've been sitting there looking at the horizon and see one breach.
Yeah.
And then I felt fear
Yeah.
from the breach because
Yeah.
of the power of that
Yeah.
breach. I was like,
Yeah.
I got out.
Yep. Good.
Is it more dangerous if they breach?
No.
Like, should you get out?
No. So that's another big question. Why do they breach? Adults breach because they're chasing prey, and they're prey breach. That's why we think adults do it in South Africa. They don't really do it here. Babies jump, teenagers jump. We see it all the time. We've actually caught it on drone. They're not chasing food. If you notice, they always land on their backs or their sides. And what we think one possible explanation is they have these things on their bodies called copepods. They're like little crabs, and they move. They move around. And exactly. And we think they are itchy. And by slamming on their side, they can dislodge them. So that's one possible explanation why they jump. We don't think it's for food. The other possibility is it may just be for fun. Seriously, it may just be for fun. Because we can watch them ramp up. In about 3 tail flicks, they can launch themselves about 8 feet in the air.
We thought they were training like how to hit prey from the depths.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be part of that play, but we've never seen them do it with prey around.
So the sharks that you tag here, do you find that those sharks over years and years and years basically just stay, like kind of travel up and down the west coast here versus like leaving and going elsewhere?
Yeah. So the sharks that we put 10-year tags in, by the time they're 6 years old is when we see them moving all the way up to San Francisco. We've had those sharks go all the way to Hawaii and come back. So by the time they're about 3 years old, they reach out offshore islands. And then by the time they're 6, they're starting to behave kind of like adults do.
But do they still pretty much stay like in that specific area, or will they like go well beyond?
So far, it's been a mix. Their ranges are very big. You know, they can range from San Francisco all the way down to Baja and back, all the way as far west as Hawaii. Genetically, they're different from the population off Japan and Russia and the population in Australia. So they're isolated in that sense.
And do you think that they like maybe being in the same space and having sort of same kind of encounters with human familiarizes them with a certain pattern that we don't even know that we may be eliciting, that they recognize and are just like, yeah, they're not for me?
I honestly think that's the case. I think we have more human shark encounters here than anywhere else in the world. And I would argue that maybe their ability to learn that has been good. When I talk to my colleagues in Australia, and Australia's had a lot of bites this year, right? And it's not just white sharks. Most of those are occurring in not popular beaches, right? Those are more remote places. So, and it could be their marine mammal populations haven't recovered as well as ours. Could be food availability. There's just not as much food there for adults as there is here. And on Cape Cod, they've already taken a very precautionary approach. So anytime they see a white shark, they pull people out of the water.
So
Then how would you explain this, the disparity between, say, California bites, you said 3 and whatever a year, versus Florida where you said, I think 40
Yeah.
a year? Like what would account for that? Because Florida's also lots of people in
Yeah,
the water doing all the same things we do
Yeah,
here.
it's different sharks in different scenarios. In those cases, they're all reef sharks. They're all 3 to 5 feet long, hands and feet, right? So big schools of bait, sharks get pushed in close to shore where people are. You have hands that are white palms, white soles of your feet. Those flash and the sharks rush through, and you'll just get some teeth marks on the upper lower parts. Almost never fatal, fairly minor, but that happens a lot. Completely different species. So this is why we always tell people, no matter where you go, do your homework.
Right.
Know what you're getting yourself into. Leave the jewelry on the beach. Don't wear that out there. That flashes. Things like that.
Are there any other for swimmers or surfers, whatever, fatalities or bites by like predators of the whites, like the orcas or the mako sharks? Like, has that ever happened to humans?
No, well, there have been some fatalities attributed to mako sharks. They're very rare because makos are usually more open ocean and people aren't out there so much. White sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks are the ones that come closest to shore where most of the people are. They're the 3 that are implicated in most of the bites, right? Orcas, the only people that I know of that have been killed by orcas are in aquaria. They actually have probably killed more people in aquaria than sharks have killed in aquaria. And there are 10 to 15 times more sharks in aquaria than there are orcas, so yeah. Quickly. There you go. Yeah, see? Yeah, that's Santa. Yeah. We should always assume that there are always sharks in the water. So I'm not to scare you, but just remember who you're sharing the water with, right? Know your fins. This is for kids. And the reason why I give this is because lifeguards tell me this all the time. Surfer comes out of the water and says, I'm pretty sure I saw a shark. And the lifeguards go, okay, can you describe it to me? So by the time they're done describing, they're basically, it was a bottlenose or a group of bottlenose that went by.
We definitely saw the one on the right the other day.
Oh yeah. So we want people to know the difference, and of course, dolphins do this and sharks do this. So looking at the motion of the fin, and these become really important, right? So it's just how to get that information out. We want to teach kids this. If a shark sees you and lets you see it, chances are it is okay with you seeing it. Track it. Always follow it. Let the shark know you see it. Most cases, the sharks come from behind. If you startle a shark, or you lose track of a shark, where's the first place you should look?
Behind you.
Behind you. They always do that. They always loop around. And it's not to stalk you. It's to safely investigate what you are. So if you always lose track, look behind you. Let the shark know you see it. If you lose track, look behind you. This is a really important one. Okay, so we're trying to get people to be more observant. So this is a no-no, right? This is a no-no. The seal is not trying to bond with you. The seal usually knows something you don't. Right? And the reason why it's trying to get on your board is because it knows there's a big predator around. So this is where arms and legs should come out of the water. You may want to encourage the seal to get off your board. You may want to paddle in shore. So again, these aren't bonding moments. These animals are very akin. They're very attuned to what's happening around them. Leave them alone. If they're sick on the beach, I've seen people put their toddlers next to them, take pictures. That's a wolf. Canines like that big. Definitely no swimming or surfing around dead marine mammals, right? That is also a big no-no. It's not that sharks are going to mistake you for that. It's just that is a good meal for a shark, and it may defend that meal. So if you're nearby, it may think you're a threat to its meal. So we always tell people, look, don't be within a half mile of a dead marine mammal in the water. And if you are swimming and you see it, make sure you let lifeguards know, because chances are it's going to show up on the beach. Avoid bait balls. This is the Florida situation. So a lot of times those bites are occurring. You'll get big bait balls coming in. People are in amongst them, and the bait is using you actually as a shield, right? So those are all bait. Those are all bait fish. So it could be anchovies, sardines, silver sides, whatever. And they're kind of using you as cover. So if your arms and legs are there, they're flashing, and a shark may crash through that, trying to get a few of those fish in its mouth, and it accidentally gets your hand or feet. So people out on boards, definitely keep an eye out for that. Birds diving, you'll notice the birds diving, and if that starts moving towards you, you should definitely start moving away.
Sometimes you just swim through like a school
Yeah,
of fish.
yeah.
That's not the same as a bait ball.
No, bait ball, you'll see it, it's being coerced, it's being pushed by something, right? Whether it's a sea lion or a dolphin, birds will be diving, that's balling them up. And that's a good opportunity for animals to crash through that and try to get a free meal. If you're in the middle of that,
Oh, it's like you're the predator trying to get.
yeah, you could be mistaken as anchovy. Yeah.
You may have our time distinguishing, because we get them out here, you get the sea lion
Yeah.
or the okay,
Yeah.
we had one the other day, I swam right through it,
Yeah.
the sea lion, we just went right into one another, and it's, so that we get them. But you
Yeah.
also have, like, you see them all moving and they're not
Yeah.
erratic, that's just the normal fish moving, the bait fish, but when they're all working into
Yeah.
a pattern.
Yeah,
that's
you want to try to avoid that if you can. Stingrays, can't forget those. Stingray shuffle, it's going to be a bad summer. So I warn you, it's going to be a bad summer. Those are all round stingrays.
When you say round, are those skates or?
No, they're not skates. They're actually stingrays. So they're round. They're about the size of a dinner plate.
Yeah.
They have a thick tail, and if you step on them, they'll flip that tail up and and stick you with a barb. And that barb has a poisonous mucus that hurts like hell. Anybody been stung? Oh yeah, yeah.
But then we also have the stingray ones that
Look like a
So
bat.
bat rays, yeah.
Oh, bat
So there's a butterfly ray right there, and it has a very short tail with a short barb, and there's a bat ray in here somewhere. But those are, and what you can't see are the ones that are buried, right? So they completely bury, and their strategy for avoiding getting eaten is to remain perfectly still. Yeah.
I don't know if this has any like validity, but some of the people I swim with outside of this group have worn the shark fin to deter the stingrays, and they seem to think that works because they'll see them
Yeah.
just shoot away. But
Yep.
you can't tell if it's necessarily the motion
Yeah.
or the magnet.
It probably does work to a certain extent because they are magnetically sensitive as well.
Okay.
Off that, are shark fans bullshit? I've always thought they were.
So for most sharks, yes. So basically all it is a strong magnet. And it creates a magnetic field, and sharks are magnetically sensitive. So for them, it's like, imagine being in a dark room and suddenly going outside. And it's kind of disorienting. So, but they have to be within 3 feet. That field breaks down. So if you're wearing one of those, and a shark can get within 3 feet, chances are it may veer away. But if it's moving really fast, it can't. So this is why on their website they say will not work for white sharks. So maybe for stingrays, it's a better use,
I'm
better
just
application.
curious. This is something that we've noticed.
Wait, a quick question about the shuffle.
Yeah.
What's the best way for us to get in the water?
Stand behind someone else.
Yes, that's it. There's the snow plow, right? You follow the snow plow. Yeah. So basically shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Yeah, so what happens is if you step on the margins, they won't flick. We actually did a really cool, my colleague did a cool study where we had a fake foot and we had a high-speed camera and we recorded the flick. You have to step on the organs. So right here are the organs of the body, and they're very sensitive, they're exposed. So if you step anywhere on the edges, it'll just try to get away.
But if we're shuffling before that,
Then
it moves the movement and it.
You nudge it and it'll take off.
Okay.
So remember, their whole strategy is if I stay buried, this thing will go by me. But your feet don't have eyes, right? So the shuffle is really the best way to avoid getting stung. Here's the wave break. Just outside the wave break is where they all are. So sometimes, depending on your beach topography, this could be 5 feet, 8 feet deep. Off River's End, this is where we saw a band where we could not see sand. It was 20 feet wide and 150 feet long. And based on the size of the stingrays, we estimate there were 16,000 there at one time. They carpet the bottom. So that would be a bad minefield. But notice, when the water's warmer, they get closer to shore. When the swell is down and the water's warm, they will come closer to shore. Low tides are the worst tides. So keep in mind, there are stingray days. We're working with the news stations right now on stingray alerts, just like rip current alerts. So for people that come visit, learn how to do stingray shuffle and what are bad stingray days. Oh, here it is.
Oh God.
Bingo.
Wow.
And there's the spine right
Fake
there.
foot. This is the fake foot.
Yeah, that's the fake foot.
Was that an undergrad?
Yeah, it was an undergrad. Okay, so lifeguards our lifeguards are very used to this. We just finished up a study. My grad student finished a study where We collected all their records across Southern California, and I'd say we got about 3/4 of it. They treat 10,000 people a year for stingray injuries in Southern California, and we think that's a conservative estimate. So they all have hot water heaters in their headquarters. They have their bags. They have their hot water coolers they bring out. They treat people on the beach. If you do get stung, be careful that the barb is not stuck in there. Make sure you get it really clean because our water isn't always the cleanest. Secondary infection happens to 20% of the people that get stung, so keep an eye out for redness. If you have to, go to urgent care. There may be a chunk of the spine broken off in there, and it may take time to come out.
Can you see the barb in your foot if it gets?
Not if it breaks off inside. So I've had a student who stepped on one, and then her foot hurt for about 2 months, and eventually it worked its way through the top of her foot. Sea jellies are a big problem for us, but occasionally, like this year, we had some occurrences of stinging sea jellies.
Yes, we did.
Yep. So know if they occur. They're pretty rare here. In other places, they're much more common. Wearing rash guards help reduce stings. So remember, the tentacle has these stinging cells called nematocysts. And what happens is when that tentacle hits your skin, some of those cells fire, but not all of the cells fire. They only fire if you disturb them. So if you rub it, like if you feel something and you rub it, don't do that, because then you're causing the other nematocysts to fire. So the way you prevent the nematocysts from is you use vinegar. So basically, this is vinegar. Yeah, so if we have situations where there are lots of stingrays, always take a little jar of vinegar down to the beach with you. Keep it with your stuff. And then sprinkle that on there. And what it does is it prevents that cell from firing. Now you can whack it, you can hit it, you can do all those things to it. It will not fire. The vinegar has basically disabled the cell. It doesn't make the sting go away. Okay. Stop peeing on things. No peeing. Peeing does not stop it. Peeing is warmth. And what warmth does is make the sting go away. So the way you treat stingray injuries, hot water. Hot water, like hot tub water, right? Hotter the better, and it takes a couple hours to make that venom totally break apart. Stingray venom is very similar to that of stingray venom and sea jelly venoms are very similar. So the way you treat that is with hot water as well. So those are just the basics. And by the way, I have a huge crew that helped me. I have about 25 staff that helped me run this program. We have our big open house at Cal State Long Beach on the 25th of July. It's open to the public. It's free. It's very family friendly. You're all welcome. And you get to tour the Shark Lab and see all the things that we do. All our funding was from the state. We did not get refunded, I found out, on June 30th. So we will be broke as of end of September. Monterey Bay Aquarium was a big funder. We do have some private donors that help. Lots of research partners. Basically all the beach cities and counties are partners. And then we have some folks that help us out with boat time to help keep our costs down. So unfortunately, all the things that we've been doing will end in September if we don't get more funding. I was really hopeful. We had a budget request in by one of the senators for $1.7 million. Our annual operating budget's about $900,000 for just Southern California. But now, I don't know. So right now we're looking for private corporate sponsorship or anything like that to keep us going.
Find one of these at your seat.
Find one of those. Yeah.
Generous donation.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. If you have any other questions. So was there any questions that I didn't answer?
I just asked you earlier, and you said you would sort of like you had studied like what made them bite people.
Oh, yeah. So that comes back to those two categories. We don't really know which. We've investigated most of the bites. That's my job. I investigate all the bites that occur in the West Coast. We work with the coroners. We work with first responders. We work with the people that are involved. Our whole goal is to try to figure out why. I'm part of a global group that does this. That International Shark Attack File has gathered 6,800 records over the last thousands of years. And we've been studying those patterns to try to better understand and answer your question. Sadly, I can't. We don't know why sharks occasionally, unprovoked, bite people.
Do you know if they repeat bites or is it one and done?
So it depends on the species and it depends on the situation, right? So in predation-related incidents, we might see multiple bites. What we typically see in most cases is a single bite and release. Now, sometimes the person fights back, and whether that causes that single bite and release, we don't know. What we do know is when more than one shark is involved, there's a higher probability of flesh being removed. So typically we don't see that. That's kind of rare. There are some places where you have multiple sharks involved, and that's where things tend to get more aggressive, right? So think of being at a picnic and there's one good brownie left on the table and there's a bunch of kids, right? It could get bloody. So in those cases, we think what it does is it increases competition. But in most cases, what we see is a single bite.
But if interesting, because then there's blood,
Yeah.
and they're not attracted to blood.
I have put, I don't know, 1,000 gallons of tuna blood, cow blood, pig's blood, sheep's blood in the water, trying to attract sharks for research purposes. It was waste.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You mean they're not attracted to it? They don't.
I think most sharks just aren't interested.
Because it's human blood?
No, not human blood.
Oh, no, you said
Yeah. It could be fish blood, tuna blood. We just, that whole myth about them getting crazy and frenzying, it just doesn't work. In certain places, like I've been to places like Bikini Atoll, really remote places where there are no people in the water. That's a different situation. It's easy to get sharks jazzed up there by just dangling a fish in the water.
Okay.
But in most cases, that just doesn't have the same effect. That it's kind of one of those
As a spear
myths.
fisherman, I'll tell you, the blood part, it's the sound of a moving fish that'll bring in, like you won't even see the blood yet, but you hear that fish go.
Yeah.
And there's times where you go, it's amazing how close the sharks were, you didn't know, and then it's in on you fast.
Yeah.
So because this is an El Nino year, and I think probably as the water continues to warm up the next month or so, we've got other species that probably
Yep.
unlikely, we don't normally see, we probably rarely would, but we were chatting earlier. Manhattan Beach has had, 2 documented tiger shark incidences back in like the 50s. So we got tiger sharks, potentially bull sharks. The other one that really gives me my question sort of is, I've just seen a number, like when we get these El Nino years, the hammerheads that come out.
Yeah.
It's very likely they're coming out.
So
So,
They're not allowed.
they seem to be particularly
Yeah.
aggressive up here
They are.
versus like in Mexico or in the Caribbean.
Yeah. So he's absolutely right. In past El Ninos, we've had tiger sharks, bull sharks that have been caught off beaches, right? And it's because the warm water doesn't just push them up; they're probably following prey and things like that. So the last 2015 to 2017 strong El Nino that we had, where our water temperature in San Diego was 80 degrees, I was surprised that we didn't have any reports of those. But in the previous strong El Ninos, like in the 70s and 80s, there were, right? So we had whale sharks off Catalina, we had manta rays, things like that. In 2015, for the very first time, we had 2 people bitten by smooth hammerheads. By smooth hammerheads. So, but here, this is the interesting thing, and this comes back to people doing things differently now than they did 50, 60 years ago. The first guy that was bitten, he's a spearfisherman, bitten at Tanner Bank.
Where's that?
Oh, yeah.
That's like 90 miles offshore.
Okay.
So he had speared a yellowtail, and he saw a sea lion that was trying to steal his yellowtail, so he's spending all his time trying to keep it from the yellowtail. And a smooth hammerhead came around and got his hand instead of the fish. So he got bitten at Tanner Bank, 90 miles offshore, had to be medevac back to San Diego. The next guy was off Malibu, who was fishing out of a kayak, hooked a fish, and as he's trying to get it back to the kayak, he had his legs in the water, and the hammerhead bit his leg. So you're absolutely right. They, unlike white sharks, get very excited around fish blood and thrashing fish.
It's not even just the fish blood though. Like, there's videos with, and I bring it up because we have a few swimmers that are doing channel swims, and
Yeah.
Anacapa is sort of the
Yeah.
starting point.
Yep.
And man, right off that, I've got videos off of
Yeah.
Anacapa where you've got these spear fishermen that these sharks are relentless. They turn on a dime.
Yeah.
They pass you, turn back, come back, turn back again. They make multiple passes. So like these places because Anacapa, I've already done one swimmer. We jumped in and they start these swims at
Yeah.
like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
not the
Danny,
not the
we're all
best
feeling
condition.
good and now we're all scared again.
So, well, this is good. We should be, especially for anybody doing the channel swims,
Yeah.
you gotta think through a next level, because what you just learned about the beach is nothing like what jumping off the island's gonna be like.
Yeah.
And, cause you're gonna, the time, the warm water when you wanna swim is when you might encounter these hammerheads. And just looking at
Yeah.
sort of their aggressiveness, it's just a different level.
Yeah, they do get more excited. than most of the species, even mako sharks. Even they get more excited than mako sharks. I was advising Catherine Breed before she started her swim because she's going through a couple different biomes, so she's going to experience different species. And her, she wasn't going to do much swimming at night if she didn't have to. But that was it was a consideration that I had to bring to her attention. Yeah. So, but those are things that you're absolutely right. You should be aware of. And El Niños really turn our ocean into a different ocean, right? The squid get pushed north, the anchovies get pushed north, all those things get pushed north. A lot of our other favorite fish like yellowtail and white sea bass get pushed north, and they get replaced by these subtropicals that come in. So mahi-mahi start coming in. We start getting the red tuna crabs coming in. So it becomes a different ocean. So what we always encourage people to do is remember you might encounter species that you're not used to encountering, and they're going to behave differently than our normal species. Just something to be aware of, not to scare you, but to inform you.
Wow. How long is summer gonna last?
Well, if their
Or what
estimates,
temperature?
if their estimates are right, if August lays down, we get no wind, it's going to start getting warm.
Even warmer.
But September and October will be the hottest.
The hottest.
That's when it will be the hottest.
Okay.
And then
So
the question
technically, our summer is gonna be until like November.
could be.
I have two things. We've seen, my early morning group, we've seen the Pacific Electric Ray.
Yeah.
And it's we kind of look at ourselves as our own little researchers, because we've
Yeah.
been swimming, 7 years,
Yep.
6:15 most mornings,
Yep.
forward, up until this year. But we saw it multiple times,
Yeah.
a few of them.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was probably the same few.
Yep.
But we had never seen that.
Yeah, they're very
That's
cool
pretty
fish.
cool, yeah.
They're very cool
A little
fish.
bit spooky looking. But
Yeah, so they're like a manhole cover size, right? And they got a long tail, and they swim like a shark, even though they have a body like a ray. And their gills are modified to create these electric organs. So think of it like a big giant biological battery. Now that biological battery is strong enough that when it shocks a fish, its muscles contract so hard that its vertebrae breaks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it can produce 50 volts, and it can put a human heart into defibrillation. So during the fall, some lobster divers that are out show up dead for no apparent reason, drowned. All their equipment's fine. They got an electric ray around their head. So they're incredibly powerful. Most of the time during the day they're buried, but usually at night they're up, and they're really cool. They're like Starship Enterprise, right? And they're cruising over, and they'll get in a school of anchovies, and they'll shock them, and then they'll scoop up the ones that they can.
It almost shocked one of our friends, because we were like, oh, this is the first day we haven't seen anything, we think we're in the clear, and then he turned around, there's one right under it.
Yeah, so we pulled one up in a net, and I warned my student I couldn't get the words out of my mouth fast enough. And I'm like, don't. And then he just got launched across the boat. Oh yeah, it's a serious shock. Yeah.
Why do they swim so early in the morning when the sun isn't out yet? Are they still out before the sunrise?
Usually by dawn they're hitting the deck and they bury in the sand.
Okay.
But sometimes they'll be out during the day. So fall is usually the big season.
That's what we were seeing them, because I was still swimming then.
I did my master's thesis on that. We made a oscilloscope and we measured their voltage underwater. It was fun.
And my other question was, and I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but if there were a few spaces, I guess in California, but also just in the world, that you would say, even as a researcher that advocates for these sharks, I wouldn't swim that.
Yeah, well, I've dove at Guadalupe outside a cage. It was a little disconcerting. The difference is the water's so clear. The sharks behave very differently in clear water. They know you can see them. They can see better, but you can see them. They behave very differently than they do here. I was a little unnerved by it at first, and then after a while, I just kind of got used to it. But we did change our behavior. We did not spend time on the surface. You do not come up and do a safety stop underneath the boat. You're following the rock up, and then the boat comes in and grabs you and pulls you in the boat. They do behave very differently, but there's a lot. There would be 7 or 8 adult white sharks swimming around.
Where is this?
Guadalupe Island. Yeah. But here, I would say 3 days a week, we're diving in an aggregation site with sharks around in horrible viz. We have never, ever seen a white shark underwater. Never. I mean, years. We've been doing this for years. I would say thousands of dives. You know. So, as I mentioned 8 years ago, I would have said absolutely not, and now I'm like, yeah. So I can't think of very many places where, based on just what I know about shark bites, that I would be that worried. You know, when I did work in Bikini Atoll, that place was crazy. No, I've been to places where sharks haven't been around people before, and they've never experienced a diver before, and they're completely 100% unafraid, like right in your face, not aggressively, like almost checking you out. You know, that's a very strange behavior that I'm just not used to. But in most cases, I think once you know something about the species, you know what the triggers are, you know what the behavior looks like, your probability of being bitten is crazy low.
And when you were saying that we should look at it, look at
Mm-hmm.
the shark.
Yeah.
So natural instinct is to just like and like swim away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Fair.
Yeah.
Do we not do that?
No.
Do we just stare at the thing?
Yeah, actually, that's the best thing to do.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's like apex predator mentality.
Well,
we have
so
to
there's
show it.
two things.
Is the bonking them in the nose true?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Here's the thing. If a shark gets...
Watercraft 2 meter your way out of it.
Absolutely. So here's the deal. No shark should be getting within arm's reach of you, right?
Yeah.
There are people that like to pet sharks and they divert them and all that stuff. That's teaching a bad behavior, in my opinion. Sharks should be warned that a human is not a safe animal either, right? So my philosophy is if a shark's getting close enough that you can punch it in the nose, you should probably give it a pop. I just don't think it's safe. We don't want sharks doing that with people.
So you don't like those, because I've seen so many videos
Yeah.
of that woman who's like, moving the sharks
And,
around.
and you probably don't know how many times some of our customers have gone to the ER. They don't get reported. It was a prop. They hit their hand on the side of the boat, sort of thing. It happens, and I honestly don't think it's a good behavior. We should not be touching wildlife, right? That's the philosophy we have. It's cool to see it, but there's no good reason to touch it, right?
So is there an area in Southern California where we can see the basking sharks more often?
Oh yeah, if you find that, will you let me know? Yeah, so basking sharks, when I was a grad student in the late 80s, I would see them probably every 4th trip to Catalina. They were a lot more in the channel. The reason why they disappeared was Canada. So the salmon fishermen that would put out their salmon nets up off British Columbia, the basking sharks would get in their nets and ruin their nets. So what they did was they welded on these big blades on the bows of their boats, and anytime they saw basking sharks, they'd just crash into them and cut them in half. So they did that. They did that for a bunch of years, and then we saw a drop-off in the number of sharks. Now, they stopped doing that in the mid-90s, and we've kind of expected the population to come back, but we haven't really seen it. So we don't know how much climate change is affecting that, redistributing them. For example, blue sharks used to be super abundant in Southern California. We would go out chumming right off the oil islands, and we would get 40 blue sharks in an hour. Now we don't see very many. According to NOAA, the population's healthy. It's just pushed further north. So.
Yeah, is that because they see basking sharks off Santa Cruz? They get on regularly.
Yeah, Monterey.
Yeah,
Yep.
Monterey. And I think like there's just you mentioned blue sharks, albacore tuna.
Yep.
We used to catch those all the
Yep.
time. Now it's like a rarity that
Yep.
you hear about albacore that you're further north.
Yeah. So some of those are the changing ocean, right? It's just changing climate.
I have some friends in South Africa, and like they're a problem. It seems like it's a problem there, and like they have the people that are like lookouts kind of, and they like radio and stuff like that. And there's I think some beaches that have nets.
Yeah.
So I have two-part question. What accounts for those white sharks to be like that there, where it's like it is like a problem, and then net or no net? Like, what's the
So the reason why white sharks are a bit more of a problem in that part of South Africa is because of their prey. They eat fur seals, Cape fur seals, and Cape fur seals are very fast. And what they do is they porpoise. They jump out of the water, and they do that so the shark has a harder time tracking them. And that's where you see sharks launch, air jaws and all that stuff. So that behavior has been kind of induced. So the thought, exactly. So the reason when people get hit, There, it's not a little bite and release, it's like they get slammed. So the thought there is that that's a behavior that they've adapted to catch their natural prey, and might be mistaking humans in that case, right?
I have
So-
a notification question.
Sure.
If there is a hammerhead around,
Mhm.
do the life, like, will it be in our, how will we know?
Well, so the chances of getting them off the beaches are very low. They're more offshore, oceanic water, kind of mako shark conditions, at least for the smooth hammerheads. So swing the channel, if you're going to see them anywhere, that's where you're going to see them.
So we won't see them here in October?
Probably not on the
in warm
beaches.
water
Yeah.
on our beach. Okay.
Although the party boats do,
Point Dune, PV,
Yeah.
there's places where like, you
Points.
catch mako sharks.
Yeah.
Right off
Yeah.
PV where the drop off is. So some of those areas, if you're gonna hit those drop offs, but we don't
Okay, but
swim
if we're
there.
just swimming our normal little
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
Then
there, we
here.
won't
Yeah.
see them and go, or.
you won't see them here. Yeah, so I don't think you have to worry about that unless you're swimming offshore, you're doing the channel or something.
Do you mind answering the net
Oh,
or the
yeah.
net question?
So,
I know it's so controversial.
Yes, so in some places, South Africa, Australia, particularly Queensland, because of fatal shark bites, they have been doing what is known as shark control mitigation for 60 years. So all that means is to cull them. They cull the sharks to try to reduce the population to make it safer for people. I've known many of the people that have worked on those programs for years. A lot of the science that came out of all those dead sharks has really advanced their knowledge, but it has ecological effects. They catch whales, they catch dolphins, they catch seabirds, they catch turtles in those same nets. So there are a lot of people that are arguing whether that's worth it, right? And it costs millions of dollars to maintain. In other parts, like Western Australia, it's only been since 2008 that they've had fatalities, and now they're starting to do the same thing they did in Queensland. So they're doing culling, but they're also doing other forms of research. What I've noticed, and we had a big conference at Reunion Island, which had like 30 bites in 10 years, was that once a community starts doing shark control, they can't stop. So, and it becomes more of a public spectacle, like look what we did with Water's Now Safer. And in reality, it isn't. So unless you drive the population down so low to really reduce the probability of bite, you're going to have an ecological impact, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. In other places like California, and this is the amazing thing, nowhere in the U.S., continental U.S., have they ever used shark control, ever. Which is amazing, right? The most litigious country in the world. We've never used shark control as a way of controlling shark populations to keep people safe. Hawaii did twice. They did it 2 times. It was government funded, and then they stopped doing it in the 90s. So in California, the goal is, white sharks are protected. We don't want to see people go out and cull them just for the sake of trying to make people feel better or feel safer. Hopefully, you get to feel a little safer by learning something about them.
Yeah.
You don't have to kill them to do that.
Wow.
On Cape Cod, is it just the Atlantic side to not swim, or
No.
there's the sound?
Yeah, so
Sharks in the sound.
yeah, so and it's the same phenomenon. It's really interesting, and my prediction is that eventually the seals will move, right? But right now the seals have camped out in certain places. At Monomoy, that island, set of islands, that's where all the seals are. They would prefer to be there, but there's no space left for the rest. So what it does is it then puts them out on other parts of the beach. They're inside the bay, and of course they range all the way up into Maine. Maine had its first white shark fatality 2 years ago, and they're all the way up into Nova Scotia. And they've probably been there all the time, but their increase in frequency is because that Gulf of Maine is warming faster than any other body of water on the planet. So the idea there is it's becoming more preferential habitat, and there's higher seal densities, fewer people.
But I also thought on the Cape they started to protect the seals. Like it used to
Well,
be
they're still protected.
Chatham Bars End used to have that beautiful beach, and now it's all seals.
Yeah, they're protected nationally. They're protected federally under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. It's illegal to kill them. There's a push from people in Cape Cod to get rid of the Marine Mammal Protection Act. But then why would you kill them? Before we harvested them for oil or fur or whatever, now it'd just be killing them to keep people safe. Fishermen are arguing that they're stealing their striped bass and things like that, but that's paying tax. We'll call it paying your taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, So you obviously go to the Cape. On the Cape they have the Sharktivity app.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So is the information, the live
Yeah.
information,
It's similar.
is it available to the public here?
It will be.
California?
It will
Okay.
be if I ever get them.
Okay.
So yes, so
Okay.
what they do is the Sharktivity app is a little different. Instead of using
Yeah, I know.
technology, it uses observations, so people can report sightings, and then
I think they have a combination.
They do.
It's like, yeah,
Yep.
so.
And we want to do something similar. Their platform, I'm not a real fan of. We were talking with the same programmer, and I think we could come up with something better. We want to use our buoys to do that. But there's a lot of education that has to go in front of that. What I worry about with the Cape is they use that as a warning system.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. What I prefer to do is people use this as an educational tool. Say, okay, look, there's sharks out there all the time. I didn't know that. Now I do. I went swimming there. Nothing bad happened. I didn't hear about anything bad. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Or maybe I'm going to change and do this instead, just to keep myself a little safer. So the app that we're proposing, and we want to work with Esri on this, is they have this cool storyboard thing. Before you can actually see any of the data, you have to kind of learn about how the technology works, the limitations, so that you don't misinterpret it.
Is it also going to educate people on how, like, honestly unlikely it is that you're going to get, because otherwise it'll probably just scare people away from getting in the ocean.
Exactly. So, but within 2 minutes, we have to convey all that information.
Yeah.
And then give them an opportunity to then see where the sharks are going.
So didn't Nantucket, I just read something in the last couple of weeks that they instated a new lifeguard thing with sharks in a warning system. I just read
Yeah.
this, like,
Yeah.
maybe a week ago.
So there's another species, the dusky shark, which gets pretty big. They can get about 10 feet long, and they've actually seen dusky sharks eating gray seals now.
Yeah.
And people got all upset. Oh, great! There's another shark that can bite people. And duskies were really common when I was growing up there. They got overfished. They were gone for about 20 years. They finally started coming back because better fisheries management. And makos eat sea lions all the time. We're just not used to it because makos got overfished here too. So I don't think that's anything for people to worry about.
No, but they were saying as soon as a lifeguard sees or gets a report of a shark, every single person around the entire island is out of the water. It's something random.
Oh, are you thinking of Lulu's Law? Is that the?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's from the Gulf, and that was from an incident that occurred.
They were trying to start it in Nantucket.
Yeah. So that supposedly it's supposed to be national. I've been getting questions about that here. Personally, I don't think it's necessary. In fact, I think it stokes fear. So basically, there was a situation where a girl was bitten this was in a Gulf state. I can't remember whether it was Alabama, but a person was bitten down the beach, and then supposedly they didn't do anything about it. They didn't send alerts across the beach, and then the next day or a couple hours later, a young girl was killed. So then the idea is now that once an incident occurs, there would be like an Amber Alert. So it would alert everybody's phone, and then people would know, okay, there's something happened here, that sort of thing. And personally, I don't think that's a good idea.
Everyone like in that area?
Yeah. So they would do it by state or by region. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it's a good idea. It got passed federally. So I don't know where it will go next.
I
But
mean, what are the odds? Like, it's like a once in a
Yeah.
lifetime type
Exactly.
situation to create like a whole.
Yeah.
And then the whole.
I actually had a shark tracker app on
System
my
like
phone.
that.
Yeah.
You do?
I took a trip to Australia to Queensland.
Yeah.
And but it said it was a world
Yeah.
shark tracker, but I noticed there wasn't California
Yeah.
on there, or the western side of the United States.
Yeah.
And so the sharks were all named.
Yep.
So like Nellie was the
Yeah.
one I followed because that's
Yeah.
the one that hit in Noosa.
Right.
I could see that it was
Yeah.
there, and November was the last time I was there in February. So that is, have you seen that app?
Yeah, absolutely. OSearch has one for the Atlantic, right? And those sharks, they put the spot tags on their fins. So remember, that only works when the shark's at the surface. And then they named all the sharks, and people could buy transmitters, and those transmitters are pretty expensive. So it's a clever idea. But the problem is you only get a detection when it's at the surface. So people would be freaking out, oh, we just got a detection, a couple 100 yards off the beach. But that shark could have been there for a month, just underwater, and you would never know it. So, but people really got engaged in it and really enjoyed tracking it, but they didn't understand how the technology
You could
worked.
set an alert too, that if Nellie hit again where you were,
Right.
you would get it,
Right.
an alert on your phone that, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't
Nellie's
explain
in
any of the things
Right.
that you explained
Right.
today
Right.
about just the surface
Yeah.
hit and all that, so.
Yeah, so I think, it gets people interested, it gets people engaged, but if there isn't good information and education to go with it, then it can become either a dangerous tool. In Western Australia and Eastern Australia, they have cell phone apps that are linked to their drones, and they send out buzzing alerts and tell people to get out of the water. I personally don't think that's needed.
I found I couldn't understand most of the information on this app. It was
Well,
probably
it's Australian.
someone like you.
It's Australian.
No, it's like really technical
Yeah.
information that doesn't pertain to just me. I was just wanting to see what sharks were around
Yeah,
that were
yeah,
tagged.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
you said, that were tagged
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
how many that weren't.
When you talking to some of the bite survivors,
Uh-huh.
is it general? Like this is a random question, but like, you know, if something bad happens to you, you get like jolt with adrenaline, and
Yeah.
you really can't feel like the pain. Like
Yeah.
I was in a situation where like I should have been feeling pain, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything
Yeah.
until afterwards.
Yeah.
Do they have the same thing?
Yeah.
Like it's just complete shock. They don't
Correct.
feel the pain. It's just like so then someone else with a tourniquet could like help them before
Yes,
they feel
absolutely.
anything.
Yeah, and when we do the training with lifeguards, I work with an ER doc, and we've done all the pre-hospital investigations looking at bites. I don't like getting into the gory details, but it's good to know. If something should happen, your first immediate goal is to stop the bleeding. You have to stop the bleeding.
I don't
Now,
have tourniquet training.
so,
Super
easy.
easy. I'll
Super
train you.
easy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll train you. It's easy.
I wear one
Yeah.
every time we swim.
Yeah.
It's so easy, just I'll take 2 seconds,
So-
I'll figure out how to use it.
So
Yes,
the
Danny,
problem with
believe
big
that.
shark bites is if it's an arm or a leg, right, and you have a major artery that's exposed, a tourniquet works. But quite often, depending on the size of the shark, you'll get abdominal or thoracic injuries that will bleed. So all the lifeguards now in their kits not only have not just one tourniquet, they have multiple tourniquets, but they also have combat gauze. So combat gauze is packable gauze. This is what you learn with Stop the Bleed for gunshot wounds. And the first thing that you do is you pack that gauze into the wound. People are always worried about doing that because they're afraid they're causing pain. Those people cannot feel pain. They don't feel it for the exact reason you're saying. And it's absolutely critical that you do that. The other thing that we've learned from all our investigations, and this is really tough at a beach, sand is the enemy.
Oh.
Okay, so somebody gets bitten, people, first responders are dragging them in the sand. That is horrible.
Is that because
Your
of
goal,
infection, or what's the reasoning?
it's a panic. They're just trying to get them out of the water.
Why is sand?
Oh,
Is it
okay, I'll get to that.
infection risk?
Yes, absolutely. So what happens is they get to the beach, the paramedics come, first responders are already treating them. They'll lay them down in the sand, do not remove the wetsuit, leave a wetsuit on, right?
Great.
And just remember, your goal is stop bleeding. So what we always have lifeguards do now is they have a tarp that they keep in their truck. They're going to put the person on the tarp, and the tarp does 2 things. It prevents sand, it reduces sand getting in the injury, and the other thing is it pools blood. Because in the water, you have no idea how much blood somebody's lost.
Now you know.
You can pour a pint of blood in the water, and it will look like gallons, right? So that becomes really critical in telling the first responders what they might need to do, right? So if you have big wounds or injuries, you have tourniquets, you stop most of that bleeding. A good paramedic will think, okay, we got to administer fluids. But if they administer too much fluids, if they bring their BP above 90, they'll blow those clots and they'll start bleeding again. So these are all things that we've learned looking at pre-hospital care from people who probably should have died from a shark bite, but lived.
And would you say that our local like EMTs, like our local like response unit, I mean, aside from the
Yeah.
lifeguards, are they, because of our location to the beach, like well educated in that? I mean, do they know these
super
things that you just said?
You are in the best place in the world. Okay, so we compared our pre-hospital care survivorship. So California has the lowest white shark bite mortality of anywhere in the world by a third, right? So Australia, South Africa, all those are 2 to 3 times higher. So when I talked to my colleagues and asked them why, when we looked at the timelines for all the injuries that occurred in California, a first responder was in the water with somebody when they were bit. EMS was alerted within 7 minutes of the time they were bitten. EMTs were there within 15 minutes. These are trained professionals with all the things they need. A Metalwork helicopter was spun up and was on site within 20 minutes, and they were in a major trauma center within 30 minutes of the time they were bitten. These are people who were on the cusp of going into shock, and once you go into shock, you have like a 17% chance of making it, right? So in those situations, when I talk to my colleagues in Australia, the average time to a hospital is 2 hours.
Oh my God. Wow.
So this explains why, right? We have cell coverage along our entire coast. We have 39 trauma centers in Southern California alone. If you're ever going to be bitten by a white shark, this is the best place to do it. So exactly, and coming back to our paramedics are used to dealing with lots of traumas, right? Whether they're injuries from car accidents or gunshot wounds. They're really well trained.
Yeah.
So just back to the Erica Fox
Mhm.
situation. I know she was away from her group, but she was with a group.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, it seems like it was there were some different things that happened there because, not being sensitive, but
Yeah.
so that she wasn't consumed, like
Correct.
they found her.
Yeah.
So, like what, is there anything we should know or
Yeah.
do differently than, besides just staying together?
So-
Did she just disappear?
So, yes and no. So there are some weird things that happen we can't figure out. But if I compare her bite with, say, another person that was bitten up there, who survived, they were very similar. Similar sized shark, very large, 16 feet, thereabouts. They were both solid hits, right? In Erica's case, I think she was knocked unconscious. There was no evidence of her fighting back. In most cases, people fight back. They have injuries on their hands from hitting the shark, right? And the shark's skin's very rough. So you can kind of see those kinds of indications of fighting back. Or people that will say, oh, the shark bit me and I was hitting it in the head and sticking it in the eye. In Erica's case, there was no evidence of that. She was wearing a wetsuit, and it looked like a single hit.
Didn't it just bite her in half?
No, it was a single bite and release. That was it. I didn't get the full coroner's report, but I did look at autopsy photos, and it was a very large shark. Got her from like knee to mid-waist, all the way across the body. But I think she was knocked unconscious.
So you think she drowned?
I suspect that because there's no evidence of fighting back.
She didn't eat her.
No, oh, absolutely not. No, there's no flesh removed, none at all.
Wait, no flesh wound?
No flesh
So
removed.
they couldn't find her, essentially.
Correct.
She
And
disappeared
that was
under
the,
water or
well,
whatever.
we don't know, right? She's wearing a wetsuit. She should have floated.
Right, that's what I thought.
So, and they had rescue out, but it was a very cloudy, as in like a typical Monterey foggy day, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think they had very good
Color
days.
as the water
So
with the way in a
just
wetsuit.
stick together.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
What about that chick who lost her arm, surfer?
Bethany Hamilton?
Bethany Hamilton, yeah. So that was Hawaii, that was a tiger shark, and tiger sharks are a little different in terms of their behavior. Again, they're, from what we've seen behaviorally, a little different. They're either a hit and drag, or they're just a clamp, like an investigation. A lot of surfers I interviewed in Hawaii, would have their legs hanging off the back of the board, and the shark would just clamp down, and then they would turn around and see its head there. It wouldn't do anything, it just clamped, and then they would hit it or try to pull away, and the shark would release, and they'd paddle back to shore.
She got bit again. And she
In that case, yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that's gonna be a big deal is if a shark is going to hit you, right? If it severs your artery, like you could see where the bite marks on Erica Fox were. If they take her femoral artery and cut it, she could bleed out in a minute. Like you're running, you're already swimming at a high tempo, your heart rate's going, it's cranking already, and now all of a sudden that artery gets hit. And so it's sort of, that's why, if you can stop the faster you stop the bleeding, the better.
That is key.
You're not gonna do it anywhere else, but on a limb.
Yep.
That's what you're trying to stop, is that, because, like with Bethany Hamilton, they probably didn't get her kind of bit her arm off, but they probably got it.
And again, those arteries are designed that if you cut them cleanly, they actually clamp down. So they'll actually seal up. And what happens with most shark bites is you get a slash through it. And when you get a slash through it, there's no way for the artery, that muscle, to clamp. And that's usually how people bleed out. So, because the cuts aren't clean. In the case of her arm, that was a clean cut. So that might have been one of the things that saved her.
So one of the thoughts, I mean, like the tourniquet, like if somebody gets hit, it's very likely the shark's taken off. It's not coming
Yeah.
back. I'd say,
Is it
what,
attack of
99 out of
sharks?
100. What's that?
Does that blood attack
No,
the shark?
no.
See, we haven't seen any evidence of that.
It's most likely gonna go, oh shit, that's not what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
And so it's gonna take off. So that's where, I don't think I feel like, if it was circling and it was a predatory bite, you're never gonna do anything about it. But if it's sort of the investigatory bite, you just go, oops, it was the wrong identity. The faster you get that bleeding stopped, so get up to somebody, get that stopped. If you have a bathing suit, take it off and literally just, wrap it around. I mean, use what you have.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of them have drawstrings for
Yeah.
men, use
Yeah.
that drawstring, you can do that, those are the things that you can do. I mean, we should have a little first
Yeah.
aid thing
Yeah.
going on.
Yes,
So
we
do
should.
you work with
Yeah.
the Stop the Bleed at Harbor?
Pardon?
Do you work with the Harbor UCLA Stop the Bleed group?
So because I'm a university diver, we have to go through basically wilderness medical training. So we go through this every 2 years. And all my students, we have a full trauma kit that we take on the boat with us just for safety's sake.
No, I'm just asking because they go, like, I used to be part of that team, so like we
Yeah.
would go out, we would actually even train the medical students, so like
Yeah.
we would go out and basically teach basics,
Mhm.
first aid and tourniquet application is part of it.
Yeah.
It's really great because they do it
Yes.
for free. We
Yeah.
actually went to Hermosa Valley
Mhm.
and did it with the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So up north, we're working on getting the state to install, first of all, call boxes. So up in Mendocino, we've had some incidents up there. They're really remote. And then, just medical kits, like right at the beach. Those simple things, a couple tourniquets, some combat gauze and Ziploc bags, things like that can make all the difference, right? And they're not expensive, right? Well, you probably want your home back.
I'm good, it's fascinating, we wanna hear all about it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.